Hey, everybody. Welcome to Movies We're Talking About, where we talk and talk and talk about movies. I'm John Carlos, and I am joined by Underwater Growly Eddie, is what I got out of that.
I'm giddy.
I could tell.
Yeah.
um, this is 2024. It is the 30th anniversary of Clerks, which kicked off the whole Askewniverse. It gave us Jay and Silent Bob. What better year to discuss Clerks?
Yeah.
And also, we just had Clerks Day, like a week or two ago. Like, so we're right on the heels of when it came out.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like a national holiday that I just wasn't a
Oh
party
yeah,
to.
like canonically speaking, it's Dante's birthday or something. If you look at the count, no, it's
And since
just
it's a leap year, it's a day early. Oh no, all right.
ah
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
This like I always wondered when the fuck am I ever going to talk about Clerks? It's if there's anything that one could accuse me of, like, when people, like, I don't know, they love Child's Play so much and it's like their whole fucking personality, like, you like this one thing. uh you know Over the years, over the last almost 30 years, there's been lots of t-shirts, lots of car bumper stickers, lots of cosplay, lots of Hollywood Babylons attended. It's
Yeah.
I don't know, if you had to point at me, like, you're this fucking thing.
Yeah. How about a little more slack for the kids loving on whatever they're fucking loving on these days. What are the kids loving on? Scream in a
TikTok.
big way. Big way. No, but TikTok as a means
Yeah,
to,
okay.
display their
But
fandom
right,
for
but like, oh, I follow
Scream.
that TikToker. Oh, okay. He did a dance for 15 seconds or something. Mr. Beast. The
Oh,
kids
oh
love
no,
Mr.
no,
Beast.
no,
He
no.
put a bunch of people in a room and then gave them money. I don't.
I don't either. I don't understand,
Oh,
but
you don't know the Mr. Beast?
no, but
Okay.
I do need to tell me now. You don't need to
No,
tell me.
no, no,
I'm
no,
good.
no. We could talk. We could talk about Kevin Smith. We could talk
Yeah.
about Clerks
Yeah. So you're a fan of this movie, are you?
a little bit. In my literally, I hate that this is considered vintage, but I got this shirt in the '90s.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any shirts that I had from the 90s. I had one because I always wear them out. That's the thing. Like, they get holes like in the
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
pits, and then I cut the sleeves off, and then they're like night shirts, or workout shirts. And then yeah, then I think the only one I kept was for an obscure Broadway musical Sideshow, and I just cut the logo out, and I still have it rolled up somewhere in t-shirt, fabric map form.
I
Yeah.
have a vintage Nirvana shirt from, like, Nevermind. The one that's
Oh,
been replicated to death with just like the yellow and the smiley face. But I
okay.
purposefully, like, over my lifetime, only wore it occasionally, so it's still, like, in really good shape. And it's
I
from the early '90s.
wow, I don't understand anything about your way of life, sir. But tell me about how this movie came into your life.
I remember. Okay, the hard thing that I don't remember exactly is I don't actually remember if I saw Clerks or Mallrats first.
Mm,
They were both in '96, and I, for the life of me, can't remember if I saw Clerks with my buddy, then watched Mallrats, said, "Hey, we need to watch Mallrats," and I showed it because I saw them both at his house. But I think, and I hate to say this, I think I watched Mallrats first,
okay.
then went and sought out Clerks. But here's the thing: I was aware of Clerks the way I was aware of a lot of things in the pre-internet age. If you were a movie nerd,
Hmm.
Entertainment Weekly, Starlog, Premiere Magazine, Cinefx, Cinescape, like, you had to read publications. So,
Hmm.
like, and not to sound too much like, is it Maureen in Scream 2? But, like, I read my Entertainment Weekly. I knew my shit. Like,
It is Maureen.
yeah, I they'd move, like, your average Joe at the local Cineplex, you might not know. But also in the '90s, that's when we started getting multiplexes where, like, hey, we're gonna fill up this 20 screen theater, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's a couple of Miramax movies that we're gonna put on here besides, The Mask and all that shit, and Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, anyway, I just remember reading about it, and being very aware of his name. So by the time the trailer for Mallrats came out, and it ends with, "What else did you expect from the director of Clerks?" I was like, I know what that. I haven't seen Clerks, but I know what this means. Like, he's 90s. He's one of us. He's part of Gen X and stuff. Oh, okay. So and then through that, I became very aware of the book Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes. Dated word, I know. It is the title of the book. For those of you,
you didn't title it, yeah.
I know I probably should have gave a trigger warning, but you know. Anyway, I never bought that book, but I used to go to Barnes and Noble and just like read it every once in a while, and I just kept like going back because I was fucking like 15. It was like 14 and 15.
I remember those days,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And you couldn't, it was harder to like, you know, your parents wouldn't buy or let you rent certain R-rated movies, and there was no way my mom was going to buy me a book with like the D word in the title. But I remember I just became very aware of like his process, the journey of the movie. You know, I was fat. I would talk to my parents, didn't give a fuck, but I'm like, did you know this movie cost $22,000? And then when it was released in theaters, it's almost as profitable as like Halloween and Ninja Turtles, because those movies had this budget and it made this much. It's like one of the most profitable independent films, and they're like, who cares, you know? And I'm like, this guy. Anyway, yeah. So you ask how it came to me. I'll never forget. And this is more of a Mallrats story. However, I was building sets for a show in high school, and it was with one other guy who was a grade above me, and the tech director. And he came in for the day because we were doing this over several days. He said, "Hey, I've just rented this movie. You got to watch the opening scene of Mallrats. It's so funny." All he wanted us to hear was so my cousin Walter got this cat stuck in his ass monologue.
Right.
And we ended up just watching the whole goddamn movie and not building any sets. And when it was over, I was like, "Oh my God, it was so funny, blah, 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 blah." I told a buddy of mine, and we rented Clerks. And I'll never forget, because this is such a minute thing, but I remember being so pissed off. We rented it like in a morning, and we had to go. And the movie was ending like right when it was time to leave. And my friend was like kind of getting up while Dante and Randall are still kind of, you know, mopping and sweeping up the store.
Oh no.
And he's kind of going about his stuff, and I'm still watching. But then literally when Randall's like, "You're closed," and he throws the sheet, my buddy hit stop, and he's like, "Hey, we gotta go." And I'm like, "Wait, oh." He's like, "No, that's the end." I'm like, what do you mean it's the end?" And he's like, I'm like, "I want to see the fucking credits roll if it's the end." He's like, "Oh," and it was such a stressful way to kind of experience it towards the end.
No, that's abrupt. That's terrible. Like you do need to see just the crawl and hear the music swell and all that. Yeah.
Anyway, so long story short, that was my exposure. It was the VHS era. I didn't see it in theaters. But it wasn't that long until I bought, speaking of vintage, my VHS of it that I still own. And holy goddamn, did that get a lot of play. I don't know if your first time was through me, but I know that, like, because I used to come over for some weekends, and I know your copy of Chasing Amy is my copy of Chasing Amy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did I introduce you to Clerks?
I love that you don't remember this. Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
I remember exactly like my first time watching it, because I remember I can't even because I remember you already introducing like this concept of the New Jersey trilogy to me, and you found out that I didn't know who Kevin Smith was. Like, what? You don't know Kevin Smith? And then it was just turned into like Charlie Day with the conspiracy theory like tape and everything like that. Like, and you were explaining all this shit to me, and it's not that I didn't care. It's just I had no frame of reference. I hadn't even seen a trailer yet, and we didn't have the internet, so you couldn't just go take me on YouTube and just show me the fucking trailer. So you're explaining shit to me, and I'm just kind of like, okay. So I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it. Let's watch. Just put it in right now. Let's watch it. And so not long thereafter, I did see Clerks first, because it was imperative to you. It was very important to you that I saw them in order, just to get the progression. Yeah, I mean, I think you even made like a case for the other side. I mean, you could conceivably watch Mallrats first, because it's really like, but and I'm just like, just what I don't just put one in.
It takes place the day before. It is a kind of a prequel, so
yeah right. So just like, just put one in. I just want to watch something, and I'm not going to last like another 15 minutes of you with your it's like, no, just show me. But I do believe you had I remember prior to you screening the movies for me, you did make me my first Johnny Bravo favorites mixtape, kids, back in the day. I listened to tiny little audio cassettes. They're like VHS but smaller and for sound. And I think they've come back actually in recent years as a novelty. So I think a
Yeah,
lot
they
of
have.
millennials and younger, Gen Z and whatnot, might actually know what they are. But anyway, your first mixtape, I believe, was the one that had Chewbacca and a
Oh
bunch
yeah.
of dialogue, just little snippets, nothing spoilery or anything like that, but just like these little quips. And I didn't understand the context for any of them. So by the time I saw the movie, I remember I was shocked at what I was looking at because it wasn't what I pictured in my head. Because I was like, it's so much harder to look at than
You thought it was going to look more like a real movie?
I thought. I thought it was going to look like something like Empire Records or something like that. Only be already I could tell, like, because Empire Records was never really my thing. I could already tell, like, okay, what they're talking about and what they're arguing about and what, just the subject matter. This is probably going to be a lot more enjoyable than Empire Records and more because also you wanted to. It was really important for me to understand, to grasp that it was, yes, a comedy, but that there was more to it. There was, something tangible, something relatable. And my cat's mewing because she wants attention.
Hear that.
Yeah. That's relatable to our world and to basically like the human experience. And what I didn't realize then that actually came screaming at me, because I have not seen this movie. I saw it so many times when I was
So
in my
many.
teens and in my 20s and probably even in my early 30s, but I think it's been at least a decade since I saw it last, because it's one of those movies that it's like, well, I can see it anytime, so I don't often
So
make
then you
space to see
so
it.
then you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, so then you don't. uh and there's no, the thing is, there, if there were a Clerks Day and I believed in associating holidays with their movie themes or whatever, then maybe I would watch it on Clerks Day. But I'd been craving it for a while, and I brought that up to you, and I said, like, well, if you ever want to talk about Clerks, I've been wanting to revisit all of Kevin Smith's catalog, and naturally I'm going to start with Clerks, and I want to see, I don't know, kind of like how it hits me, because I knew, like, the Jungian kind of fairy tale that we go on with the sequels,
Yeah.
how they and I wanted to, but I had, because I hadn't revisited the first one in a long time, I just wanted to see, like, what is that mentality like? And oh my God, it was a trip. It was interesting seeing what I thought rebellion looked like legitimate rebellion, and the way it would manifest in a young person's, or at least, in the 90s, from a young person's point of view, how they could feel so
Yeah.
badass and so outside the system.
I don't often think of the word rebellion, but there are rebellious moments, and I do see what you mean. The idea of
Mhm.
holding up the magazine at a guy in this establishment, you know.
Or even honestly, the first time it hit me for this particular screening, no one had even really, I mean, there had been the exchange with Dante on the phone, and going in, and you come back, you come in noon, or I walk, and him setting everything up, and just when he realizes there's no papers, goes over outside to
Mm.
the little, I don't even know what you call it, kiosk, I guess, where you can get your newspaper. He puts his coin in, opens it up, only apparently pays for one, steals the stack, closes it, goes back, realizes that he still has his coin, and just goes inside, and those are the papers for the day. That affected me for the first time I've ever
Oh,
seen this movie. I actually got kind of stressed out. I was like, dude, that's not right. Like, I thought about
oh,
the system. I thought about, this is why newspapers can't stay alive. Like, this is why they
oh.
cost shit anyway. And now you're cheating them even of the shit that the
It's.
little shit that it costs. Like,
I love how, like, I don't want to say it's rebellion, but yeah, there was because when this movie came out, like when we used to like walk like to and from school or to a mall or something, and if we saw like payphones, we would knock the phone off the ringer and keep going, like little rebellious bullshit. it just the view of the world, so that if you were going to pay for one newspaper, no, you take them all. Obviously, he's doing because he works at a store, but like I never thought of it in any kind of negative way. But it's funny that now that we're old,
Yeah.
you look at it like an old man would instead of as a young guy in his 20s, Eddie.
And it never even stood out to me. It wasn't even all that memorable to me. It's not like I saw that moment and thought, wow, I never thought that before. It's like, I never even noticed that moment before. It was just one of many kind of like mundane activities, just kind of like setting up in the morning. Because I mean, you and I both have like retail experience. And I think for that reason also we could relate. Mine was still kind of on the horizon,
Mine too,
but this movie kind of set me up for it. And I was just kind of like, God, Kevin Smith made a documentary in a lot of ways, with the girl asking like, so how much is this? And the big, sign behind her emblazoning with all the arrows, or just, all that
and
kind
just
of bullshit.
Navy SEALs.
Ooh, Navy SEALs. It's also one of the most fucking quotable movies like in the history of cinema
ever.
Like, yeah.
And not just quotable, but like the line reading inflections.
Yes.
Nobody goes, ooh, Navy SEALs. They go, ooh, Navy SEALs.
I thought about how many, because it wasn't just me, it was my sister too. You had a profound effect on us both. And I remember anytime there was anything even remotely like pastry related and my sister wanted to eat one, she'd snatch it up and go, snack cake. And I think I might have done it like maybe in the last 10 years without even realizing I was doing it. That's how ingrained, that's how in coursing through the blood like this movie is, like for me.
100%.
So I can only imagine for you.
I only remember one, and it's the one memory I have of watching Clerks with you.
Yeah.
And for some reason I'll never forget it. No, it's nothing but Dante comes in with the little clicker and he just goes, you ever notice all the numbers end in 9? Damn, that's eerie. And you just busted the fuck up at that he realizes all the numbers end in 9. Was for some reason like it just killed you.
I did make a note of my first laugh in this particular screening. I don't know if you ever like notice the first time you kind of laugh out loud, but for this one, it was again so weird. But it was just the exchange between like the Chuli's gum representative while he's laying the groundwork for like accusing Dante of being a cancer merchant and all that. And it's just when he's talking to the first guy and he's just kind of like, it's a picture of a cancer-ridden lung. Keep it. And I had to pause because I was missing dialogue. Like I had to do that a few times, or I just wanted to laugh hysterically, either like because it was like hitting me all over again, the magic was happening, or things like, oh, I haven't thought about this, in forever. And God, this is a fucking funny movie.
Yeah, there's I mean, one of the things it's funny because I've spent, God, I would love to go back and talk to everyone in my life. Like, was I annoying or what? Because like there was a lot of people who were like, you've never seen Clerks? We got to watch Clerks.
Yeah,
I'm bringing Clerks over. I remember even like, I don't know what show we did, but I'm sure there was like a living room full of people. Not like a cast party, but poster. But I remember like showing this to a room of people. Mm-hmm. And I still remember specific beats that it's proof that even though it's static, it's dialogue based, the camera never moves, it still plays.
Yeah.
So that like, because there's a lot of what I consider like very specific, like, yeah, it's indie 90s, but like when the Chuli's gum guy says like, all right, he's like, well, can you not bother customers? Sure. And then a second customer comes in.
Yeah.
We cut outside to Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
The comedy cut is we cut back to a bunch of customers and he's doing his whole speech.
Yes.
That's like comedy 101.
Yeah.
I remember just them cutting back to him, room full of laughter. Like all these things land. I'll never forget like Randall's talking to a lady outside the store and this room full of people don't know that Randall works in the video store.
Yeah.
I'll bet you $20. $20? You're on, asshole. And then he goes next door, gets the video and the keys, and everyone goes, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh my God. Like it all played so good.
I also love the fact that at that particular moment when he returns, like I paid extra special attention to the timing because I couldn't remember, like, is he like behind that door long enough to like grab that video just so he can beat her?
Right.
But he isn't. The whole thing was just to fuck with her mind.
Yeah.
But then he still, and the mind fuckery continues when he passive aggressively opens the door but stands swaying, like almost blocking her way in, so she has to kind of brush past him involuntarily if she wants to get into the store and get to that fucking videotape. Like even that, like shit like that, I'm just kind of like, you little prick. Randall. But even if I saw, that's what doesn't make me feel old. Is if I feel like if I met a Randall right now, I'd just be like, you little shit, but with a grin, you know. I wouldn't be like, fuck you screw you, man, you know. Hey, you can't rent videos here anymore.
I mean, I think the difference is whether you encounter him for a few minutes or if he's your best friend and you see him every day.
Well,
it's a different experience, I imagine.
I think I do a better job than Dante, though. I think Dante actually feeds Randall's habit
a
great deal.
And Dante is more high strung than you are. So like,
oh God, like yeah, I just roll my eyes a lot more. And also, yeah, Dante takes his job like way more seriously than I think I did at the time. When I was like his age, 22, I think I knew, you know. I mean, I was still navigating through like a clinical depression, but I still
but
kind of
also,
like had a perspective, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, took his job seriously to a degree, but also like hated it and knew he wanted something more, but also didn't want enough to get off his ass and pursue something more, just enough to sit there and bitch about it. So you know,
it's toy box theory. Yeah,
there's a lot, if you want to, I don't want to say unpack, but like at the core of this movie, there are these two guys that they're in the same station in life, but it's how they attack it is that what so defines them. Like when Randall flat out says, like, well, Dante's like you're any better. Yeah, but I'm fine with my station. Like I know where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is the like there's a series of movies that came out in the 90s that I don't know if they meant to define Generation X, but now 30 years later, or even 20 years later, we kind of look back on them, good or bad, like Reality Bites and all the problems that movie has. But also like, but when you look back at like the post-Reagan era, boomer era, and how it created the ineffectual attitude, the rejection of like the nuclear family. Like this was a generation that wasn't like, oh well, I need to go to college right away and have my 2.5 children and own a house. And no, like I say we, but I'm the fucking youngest of Generation X, and I'm like the oldest of Generation Y / millennials. But this idea of the and I hated this term when it was being used, but you heard this all the time, the slacker comedies. Another slacker comedy. But I do look back at so many movies about teens and people in their early 20s who are just hanging out, kind of maybe going to college, but like not taking it seriously, working their jobs and not going to, you know. So when it comes to what that sort of thing was in the 90s, you have a movie where neither one of these guys is like, well, I've got my dreams and I want to get a college degree and then meet a girl and put a ring on her finger. They are in their job, not going anywhere in their early 20s. And I think the main difference is the fact that Randall seems to own it and say like, yeah, at no point do I ever get the idea that Randall's like, oh man, I want the 2.5 kids.
No,
I want the stability and the thing. And I don't even know how much Dante wants it. I know he's got that half-assed Ariel, I want more, but like, again, as long as it's comfortable, he's going to stay here and just keep wanting.
I just love the Little Mermaid reference. Thank you for that. His I Want song. If this ever becomes a musical, Dante might start a song and never finish it.
What's interesting is that like, but it isn't, he spends the whole movie not knowing what he fucking wants, just knowing it's not this.
Well, this is
And
the yeah.
but
Keep
that's
going. Sorry.
but I mean, but okay. So obviously you have a guy who's high strung and highly reactionary, and
Mm,
then there's another guy who's like, hey, whatever, and also like I push your buttons. Sometimes I don't. I just don't mean to. Sometimes I do. But
yeah.
like that energy, fine. But also like underneath
Hmm.
is acceptance versus. I love it if it would just be acceptance versus desire. But Dante's he's like on the cusp of maybe understanding what he wants by the end of the movie.
Maybe self-actualized versus lost. Because this is the irony of it is because of Randall's cacophony, at the end of the movie, or near the end of the movie, like his speech that he gives while they're sitting there on the floor after the fight. um that he has enough self-awareness and enough self-loathing to deliver a speech like that. And it always breaks my heart when he even just like the well, if we're so fucking advanced, what are we doing working here? The profundity of the way, I mean, he's already been a kind of like idiot savant for the whole movie for me, because like he accidentally makes like really incredible points, or maybe not so accidentally, but they feel like he either spent his life honing this philosophy, or he's just an id and just knows enough words
Yeah, I don't think
or
he
can bullshit well enough to like cover his ass and make it seem like it's coming from somewhere. But I feel like it's a little bit of both.
it's
Again, like
yeah,
he's
he's
yeah.
a mystery because like how because for example he in something like what you're relating to, Dante is on the phone, he's getting steamrolled, he's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you. He's like, this is a healthy, correct thing to say. Why did you apologize? You have
Hmm.
every right to be mad at that guy.
Yeah.
But the way Randall's saying it, like I can't tell how much of it is, even though I agree what he's saying is true, how much of it's coming from like trying to explain the truth of it all to Dante, or just
Mm.
trying to like get under his skin. And that's just, or he's not trying to get under his skin, but the way he talks inevitably does get under his skin.
Yeah. It's
Within, there are some scenes where I'm like, you are very in control of what you're doing to him right now. And there are other
right.
scenes where I'm like, you have no idea what you're doing to him right now.
Yeah. It's hard to know what the ultimate objective is and what the perk is because
Yeah,
they switch places. Like that wasn't my intention, but I'm happy it's happening. But whether I'm inspiring you to like actually like pursue something, some change in your life
yeah,
and do something about your shitty life that you keep complaining about, or whether I'm just poking the
exactly.
bear. Yeah, either who knows. But I and that just like kind of brings me to the wonderful existential layer to like this whole thing. It gets said later on in Chasing Amy by Ben Affleck's character, that when he's writing about Jay and Silent Bob, that he always thought about them as Vladimir and Estragon or Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. As I was watching this movie, and I think I always knew this, but again, got reiterated for me this screening, I felt like Kevin Smith wrote two Rosencrantz and Guildensterns,
Mm.
because you've got Dante and Randall, who life is just passing them by, and all they do is talk about it, like Vladimir and Estragon in Waiting for Godot. And in that case, I would probably actually make Jay and Silent Bob the Potso and Lucky, who just kind of wander in and wander out.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucky's largely silent for the entire time until he just sits there and spews like, I don't know, what is it, 4, 5, 6 pages of speech that I'm told, I've never sat down and read it like coherently. It's all one long run-on sentence, but it's supposed to make sense and be quite profound in its own way. But anyway, but if we're looking at Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, it made me think like, okay, so Dante and Randall in this movie are like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern by Tom Stoppard, whereas Silent Bob and Jay are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern as written by William Shakespeare. So that was kind of nice to have that epiphany as well. Because that's the big part of it. It's just like the emptiness, like the way that life seems to be vacillating and things seem to be happening to other people as they pass in and out of this environment. And it's like, well, what about us? We keep choosing to be here. We won't leave. but we don't want to be here. But do we really want to leave? Like, you know, and what is it that's keeping us here? And just exploring that, like in a
Yeah,
cyclical nature. Yeah.
yeah. What's
Makes
keeping us
sense.
here, and literally not knowing what I want. I just know I
Mm,
don't want this.
yeah. But I mean,
Because the thing I find really interesting about the end speech that Randall has
yeah.
is that, because again, earlier in the movie, Randall does declare, "Hey, I'm happy with my station. I know what I have here, and I'm fine with it. It's you that are bitching about it." However, what I
Yeah.
find interesting is that when he's like, "Oh, fuck you, man, fuck you," and he's laying into him about how, you chose to be here. I didn't twist your arm, blah 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 blah. But through that speech, he talks about how Dante glorifies his position as if, the quick stop wouldn't.
Yeah.
And he goes, "You have what's basically a monkey's job. You push fucking buttons. You work in a convenience store badly.
Mhm.
I work in a video store too badly as well." And all of a sudden, the conversation stops from being you
Yeah.
to we.
Hmm.
And at the end of it, I'm like, I know that this is supposed to be for Dante to learn a lesson, but at the end of it, Randall's also getting a reflection himself. And I don't know if he's just been denying it for the first time, but the fact that it's, if we're so fucking advanced, what are we doing here? Instead of, if you're so advanced, what are you doing here? There's this little bit of not an epiphany, but like a growth for Randall in that moment. And I love that it
Yeah.
seems to be that he's for the first time acknowledging that it is a we, that I kind of, again, because I look down on people just because,
Yeah.
oh, cute cat, what's his name? Annoying customer. Why? Why?
I remember now that was one I remember the first time I saw it, because I probably would have been the person going, I wouldn't have even asked, but I might have just kind of gone, oh, and Randall probably would have been like, oh, and I would have gone,
Yeah.
oh God, I'm so stupid. Why did I let my feelings show? But but no, I agree with you. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Randall is deceptively simple in the way he appears through most of those people who are passing in and out of like those stores. But there's that well runs deep. I
Yeah.
think in a lot of ways, I feel like his emotions and his ability to reflect runs a lot deeper than Dante's, which is odd because they both have these complexities within them. But that's the thing, though, because to speak to Dante's complexities, the one that stood out to me was just the word comfort, because
Mhm.
it's a word that comes up a couple times throughout the script to when Randall is describing him, but it also comes
Yeah.
up in the exchange when he's talking about shitting his pants, and
Oh, yeah.
when he saw that the toilet seat was down or whatever, and he says he's convinced he can't make changes and he won't disrupt things just so he can shit comfortably. But yet, when you are when you have like a self-imposed immobilization within your life and the direction that it's taking, in that it is also just cyclical, just kind of circling the drain. Um, and it is doing that because time is always going by. But when you are choosing that, you are actually choosing comfort, like safety. That level of safety, there's a comfort to it because you're not risking anything, so you
Hmm.
don't ever risk losing anything, and I've learned through my own, bouts with whatever my life is, that sometimes safety can be necessary. Sometimes it's important to insulate and kind of protect yourself and everything like that. But also, if you do nothing but that, it's never going to lead you to forget the life of your dreams, but maybe not even like a life that you can subsist off of, that can
Correct.
actually nourish you
Yeah.
emotionally, psychologically, and all of that.
But that to me is that's a big boy problem.
Yeah.
That's usually not something that you're addressing at like 21, 22 in college age, but
Mm,
absolutely.
yeah.
I relate to that more so now. I won't get into it, but I had, yeah, I recently had an encounter with someone who's like pursuing the dream
Ah,
but struggling. And to me, I'm like, oh, it's great. They're pursuing their dream. But they were like, oh, it's so great. You have stability.
yeah.
Like,
Grass
and
is
I
always
never,
greener.
yeah,
Grass is always greener if you're nice. If
yeah,
you're around nice people, the grass
yeah.
is always greener.
Um, shit, I forgot what I was gonna say, but it was related to all that, and then Dante and and
Dante Randall's safety. I don't know, comfort.
oh no, the comfort. Yeah, no, but I mean everything in his life. Like it breaks my heart a bit. But when Randall points out that like you're with Veronica, you stay with her because it's easy and comfortable. You're at this job because it's easy and comfortable. And you have a certain sense of like control over it. And,
Yeah.
and there's and you know what the thing that kills me too is that how high strung he gets at this job, and this is
Mm.
the comfort. Holy shit! What if he was somewhere else? I mean, I never knew to say this. Then this guy needs therapy.
Yeah.
He needs to talk to somebody.
I agree, but at the same time, like this is the thing. It's there's this have you ever heard of toy box theory?
No, please tell me all about it. I want
Okay, toy box theory is essentially when you have problems and you can angst over them and you can play with them as you would play with toys, but they're not real problems. They are as threatening, they pose as much of a threat to your life as your action figures or dolls or toy cars. Like maybe, maybe they're a choking hazard or maybe, something like that. But you have to like go to an extreme in order for it to actually like have any effect on your life, as opposed to if you put the toys away and actually leave the playroom and go out and visit your life, the world is waiting to just hand you problems or challenges, if you're speaking to a life coach or somebody who's got a more positive spin on life. And but again, it's a comfort to go back to your toy box, these things that you've had, like this sense. It's also like it dates back to like a sense of childhood, like like no, I don't want to do my homework and I don't want to do my chores and I don't want to like even see other people. I just want to be alone in my room and just boing 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 to this action figure's head, and I can, if I need to, I can work myself up into a stupor over like whatever problems I'm going to create with these toys. Like I can like create a war with these action figures, or I can like have a car, cars like crashing into each other, and none of it is real. None of it actually pans out into any kind of consequences that will inform like the course of your life, except for wasted time. Does that make
Oof.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hurts, don't it? So Dante has major toy box theory like fully employed, because all he's doing is angsting over everything. And I remember that actually used to really bother me about him, and we'll get into more of that later. But in particular, like this time I remember watching him, and I think the thing that pissed me off the most though was in relationship to Veronica. Like there was no problem with that relationship. Veronica is awesome, and I'm just gonna put this out on Front Street. Dante is an idiot, because like, I mean, I do have the advantage of like coming into the movie having seen it, so I already know that Silent Bob is going to bring up the line about like, bringing lasagna to work and the significance of that, because he's right. He is absolutely right. But I feel like from the get-go she is a badass, turning a fire extinguisher on people. It made me think about another moment in a movie you and I love, in Ed Wood, when Patricia Arquette runs over and jumps in front of that car to try and flag it down, so
right
so all of Ed Wood's little team can like, and Bella and everybody can just get into it and just escape from like this rowdy crowd and everything like that. And Bella points out to Ed, like like a woman, I don't even remember what the exact line is, but yeah, basically like a woman like that who's going to throw herself in front of, that's the kind of woman you want, that's the kind of person you want to keep in your life, someone who's going to throw themselves in front of a car to save your friends. And I'm like, Veronica is totally that person in her own like version of it, and in his world. Like I completely relate to everything that, because I've been on both sides of that argument, like where somebody just doesn't know what to do with you, or where you just see nothing but the potential in somebody and have, and even love them. And if only they could, just whatever it is that's keeping them from, I won't get into details because it's going to get too personal, but oh my God, that's how good this movie is. That's how much it resonates, is that like you can't kind of help but express your own course of action throughout your life, when you reference things and really examine it the way we're examining it right now.
I mean, and it's really, I mean, I could talk more about the script later, but it is really impressive that for a so-called slacker comedy, there is a lot to unpack within the relationships and even within the dialogue itself. Because while we're on like this specific kind of subject of Veronica and Dante being an idiot. It's right before he has the epiphany. He's talking to Jay and Silent Bob. And to me, it's just meant, at least initially, for many viewings, I thought it was just a funny line. And it is funnily delivered, and it's a good beat. When Jay's like, didn't I fucking bring you massage, bring you fucking food to work? Didn't even see her change your tire once? And Dante goes, look, I jacked up the car. All she did was loosen the bolts and change the tire. So it's funny that his defense is she actually did, but
Yeah.
but then the truth of it is, but that's actually like how he sees the moment.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I jacked the car up. All she did was this. And you're like,
Yeah.
see, that's you not valuing her. That's how you don't see and don't acknowledge all that she did. You only kind of see what you're allowing yourself to see. And it's no longer just a funny line to me. It's like a metaphor for the whole fucking relationship, man. You know?
Yeah. And it reminded me of kind of the food chain, what pattern that we can go into when we're younger, and hopefully only when we're younger. Oh. Where I haven't felt this way in quite a while, so I'm very grateful for that. But I remember being younger and, you know, carrying a torch for someone who was carrying a torch for someone else. And if you look at it that way, it's like, okay, there's Veronica, like trying to see past the immediate reality and just towards, like, you know, Dante's potential, like who he could be, who they could be. If she just waits around long enough, maybe he'll change. And he's doing the exact same thing, but with Caitlin.
Yeah.
It is so, it makes me angry and sad.
It makes me a little personally, like a little extra angry, because Dante isn't, he's putting in the time on the phone, you know, and just talking with her late at night. But Veronica like changed schools to be closer to him. Like she's altering her life path for him. And that's what makes me extra mad at him.
And then again, the toy box theory comes back in when, and this, I love it because it's kind of a microcosm of like where Chasing Amy's going to go. But when he finds out how many dicks she sucks, and it's still entertaining as hell. It never loses kind of its humor and its charm in that vein. Like I sit there and I usually, if I have to watch, like, particularly, no offense, if I have to watch a straight couple fight cinematically, most of the time I'm just kind of like, oh dear God.
Or we're so lame, Eddie. We're so lame.
No, because if it's written well, then I'm going to be like, I'm, you know, you've seen movies with me. Sometimes I go, oh, you know, and I just like do the thing where I just have to lean in and just go like, oh my God, mom and dad are fighting. But with this one, I was just kind of like, you know, it was like kind of like watching, it was something that made me like them as a couple, actually. I felt like I was watching Nick and Nora, you know, and like, what was it, the Thin Man series? That like the married couple who like went around and like solving the crimes and everything with each other.
Never seen a single one of them, but I know exactly. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it's like that level of like banter, as far as like the way they can just kind of like chatter, you know, like throwing the ball back and forth. Like, you know,
how many? All right, shut up and give me a second and I'll tell you. Like,
exactly. Yeah. It's just like, how many dicks did you suck? Or just like, my girlfriend sucked 37 dicks in a row. Shut up.
I didn't get this upset when you told me how many girls you slept with. It's like, this is different. This is important. I'm like,
yeah, right.
It's funny, but also, again, that's different. This is important. Like, I mean,
he's a pig. He's a fucking pig for judging her like that. God. And then that's the only thing.
But here's the thing. When you're a teenager in the 90s, it's funny. Looking at it as a 40-something, like you can really kind of judge where his values were, what was important to a cishet 20-year-old at the time. Like,
oh yeah,
it's this movie actually gets like richer with age, I think.
I think so too.
When you can look back on, because first of all, even without this movie, there's so many things where I look back on my 20s and I just like things I said, things I did, just like how foolish as a, you know, what a silly boy I was.
Absolutely.
Masquerading in a 20-year-old man suit and just,
I
you know, I would hope, you know, in Clerks 3, if you know, Dante had a moment to reflect, he'd go, like, that was not my best day. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Blowjobs, like how entitled. I'm sure it was funny to an outside observer, but oh my God, what a piece of shit, you know?
Oh my God, I want Kevin Smith to hear that. But no, I know what you mean. Like even Veronica, like there was a moment that again made me kind of sad because I remember when I was younger, particularly like, I mean, I guess when I was closeted and I wasn't really like letting things in, and I was just kind of like ha 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 ha. And then after I came out, I remember I'd revisit that moment and just be kind of like, yes, honey, like, which is just kind of like, and if you think 37 dicks is a lot, then I'm going to make the hookers in Times Square look like whatever the line is, the line.
Put the hookers in Times Square to shame with all the
yes, there you go. And when I was like a newly out kind of kid, I was just kind of like, yes, Smith, yes, me too. Let's get even with him by fucking as many people as possible, which lasted throughout my 20s. And I now I look at that and I'm just kind of like, oh, don't do it because he fucked you over. Like, oh, honey, respect yourself. Or not even, because I mean, sex isn't all about respect, and it needn't
that's
be.
coming from the heat of the moment. She's not
I
coming
understand,
from like a logical place that you are,
but also it also like comes from a place of just like, fuck you and what you think,
right?
And I'm gonna do the thing that you hate the most. And it's like, well, okay,
and you're like,
you're in it,
go suck a bunch of dicks because you want to, not to get back at him.
Yeah, don't get back at him by sucking the dicks. Although, I mean, I did exactly that throughout my 20s, so I can relate. But I was also just, I don't, the grainy black and white aesthetic. Like, I watched a little like behind the scenes, like some interviews here and some of the footage that I'm sure is on any number of those editions that you have sitting behind you right now, in the making of Clerks. And there was one where Kevin Smith addressed the fact that like early on, a critic, the reason it was black and white was because he didn't have any money, but a critic pointed out pretty early on in the movie's life, being showcased and whatnot, that it's like he wanted to simulate the security camera aesthetic by putting it all in black and white. And from then on, anytime anybody asked him a question about like, why the black and white, he'd be like, well, I wanted to simulate the security camera aesthetic. And I'm like, well done, sir. Yeah. Well done.
And the truth is, black and white film stock was cheaper than color film stock.
Absolutely. But it just made me think about like even the short list of black and white films that existed that were kind of like being pushed to the forefront in the 90s. I could only think about, in terms of indie film, the only other one I could think of was Pi, and I'm sure you can think of something other than that, and that was like 4 years after this.
I want to say in the Soup was like 92 or 93.
Okay.
And Pi was like what, 96 or 98?
I think it was 98 actually. Maybe, or 90...
I think it was 98.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and then there's plenty of movies that weren't necessarily indie, but like I was aware of like, plenty of Woody Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Even Celebrity, which I think was...
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Celebrity was in black and white. That's true. I never think about him as indie film though, even though maybe he is. I don't.
I mean, yeah, there's a certain part of maybe like the late 60s, early 70s that maybe...
Yeah.
Indie sensibilities.
Well, yeah.
Even if they are like produced by MGM or something, that still is like, oh, it's just two people walking in the street in New York talking.
Sure. But it did also make me think in terms of indie film and like that aesthetic. Like there was something so pleasant, and I don't even mean pleasant, but pleasing about the acting style, like the level that everybody on screen is at, because I don't feel like any one person in particular shines brighter than anyone else. They all are in the same movie. And and it just reminded me of like one of my favorites, like early stage John Waters film, like back when it was just him and his friends and a camera, and someone was in charge of this and someone was in charge of that, but it's going to get shot, like this is the day we're shooting. And if we have it, we have it. If we don't, then we'll figure something out. We're just going to point a camera. You're off book, go do it. And that I don't know, the fact that it's like one cohesive piece like that, like it's not a mess, it like I said, it's cohesive. It all kind of like works and occupies the same world. And I don't know if that ever really struck me as the bonus that it does now. I remember when I was young studying acting, Brian O'Halloran in particular used to piss me off. Because I think all I wanted to do was play Dante, because I was convinced I could do it better. And now I watch it and I'm just kind of like, but that's Dante!
Exactly.
Like I can't imagine another world, I mean, because that would completely change everything about the movie, and possibly like the dynamic of that friendship, and that is something I don't want.
Before
So that,
we get away from this, I want to the thing that when you mentioned black and white that I appreciate is that you start this movie and it feels, I don't want to say like highbrow, but like indie cinema in black and white. So the second it starts becoming, how many dicks did you suck? And talking
yeah,
about Empire Strikes Back and
yeah.
jizz mopping, that was like the shattering thing was like, oh my god, it's so filthy, but it looks like indie cinema. Like it
Right.
feels highbrow, but it's so lowbrow. Uh, even though I think there is a lot of highbrow to the pathos of the characters and what the movie's saying, but it says so with a level of vulgarity that was surprising at the time for how it looks. Um, and you're right. First of all, it's funny because the two things came up, but I'll never forget after we watched Clerks for the first time, my buddy and I'm like, oh, one of the things that's neat about black and white is it looks like, and he cuts me off and he's like, it's like how gray and colorless their lives are. And I remember thinking, oh, you're right. No, I was gonna say it's like they're in a convenience store and we're looking at a security camera footage. And then later, those were the two things that critics would always note. And I love that, like,
Right.
not patting myself on the head or anything, but like little 15-year-old me, like, came to that conclusion as well as all these other critics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I honestly thought, I'm like, it's in a convenience store. Black and white security camera, right? Like, duh.
Yeah.
No, but the thing that strikes me that somebody mentioned, I think it was around Chasing Amy, where someone said either about Kevin Smith and he heard it or someone said it to him, was that your style is that you have no style. Because, he just locks the camera down and lets people do stuff for about 3 movies. He started to move the camera. First, and I always thought, like, well, with Mallrats, but he had a little bit of studio money and stuff. But
Sure.
look at Clerks and Chasing Amy, and there's long stretches of Dogma where it's still like talk, talk, talk.
Sure.
However, I always kind of took offense when I was younger to the idea that he has no style. And I love that idea that, well, your style is you have no style. But I would say that the text of the script is so strong,
Yes.
and you usually surround yourself with really, really good actors, that when it is just because it's I'm not saying he comes from theater, but like he did plays in high school, like
Yeah.
he knows his way around a stage and a script, that there is something to locking the camera down and just trusting that the actors are going to get the dialogue to happen.
Yeah.
And who gives a fuck if he doesn't dolly or pan or push in? Like, to me, just as much as certain other filmmakers that have a dynamic, you obviously, if you're watching a Spike Lee movie or a Wes Anderson movie, like, you're watching it the second you turn it on.
Yes.
When you look at how a camera's just sort of letting the actors do their thing and you listen to the fucking movie, like, you undeniably know it's a Kevin Smith film. Like, there is a style.
Yeah.
And I will always defend that. Like, no. If you can discern that it's him, even in Chasing Amy, there's something about Alyssa and Holden playing darts and talking. Just look, we don't light it beautifully. In fact, the shadows are pretty harsh. We cut to the couple making outside. Like, we shoot. I don't want to say we shoot it ugly, because there is a charm, especially Chasing Amy, to how it looks. But it's not about how it looks, even though it does support. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, you're making me realize, like, I mean, it's not like I never knew this before, but it's just reminding me where my priorities are as far as like filmmaking, and how much more I will respond to material and performances that are captured, almost accidentally, than a lot of maneuvering and planned out. Like, I mean, it can work, it can be successful. I have seen things that have been very, what's the word I'm looking for? Intentionally, like, plotted out and planned and rehearsed and take after take to achieve like that final thing. No, finally we got it, like on take 13 or 33, whatever, like, and you nailed it. And I've experienced, a visceral reaction to that, as opposed to just kind of sitting there going like, applause, technique. But that said, there's something, there is There is, I can't think of another word to describe it than a magic, or just something that is charming, that is enchanting, that is what I go to the movies for, about just kind of like witnessing something happen, and there's none of that distraction. I've also, because I've also seen, and I know you have too, when directors and cinematographers or directors of photography like overextend themselves and push style in the place of something else, either because they feel like, you know, this scene or this movie is lacking something, so let's just make it look really nice, or even worse, I'd argue, they're employing a lot of techniques at the wrong time, you know, or in inappropriate areas where it's not serving anything. You're just trying to make the camera do something to show you know how to move the camera. Just give me something that I can relate to and that I want to keep watching. That's pretty much it for me, as far as like what I want to put my eyeballs on. And Kevin Smith does that. I want to watch it and I want to hear it. And I also feel like to say he has no style feels really dismissive, because I laughed out loud so hard because of something that is, I don't know, I mean, it's a technique, but it's a camera move. And it's when Dante and Randall are, I think it's when they're on the way, they're on the way to the funeral home.
Oh yeah,
And they're talking about like, and they're talking about like, you know, sucking you off and everything like that. And it works for the comedic beats, because it's just kind of like just like, oh, by the way, I never could what, never could, you know, like, you know, go down. I guess you're right, like, you know, everybody's curious, I guess we all try it at one time or another. I've never tried it. Dante, back to Randall. It's like you're in the back seat and you're doing a double take at Randall, because you're just like, wait, what? Did you really just do that?
And then it holds for the perfectly timed and
Yes.
brilliantly delivered. Fucking pervert.
Yes. And what's more, the camera move is in alignment with Dante's reaction, because Randall is leading us all by the nose at that particular point, and the camera knows that, you know, like intuitively we're watching this from Dante's perspective for the most part, and Randall is the one who comes in and affects the environment. Dante is the one who reacts, who, you know, and even I'd say reels from the environment voluntarily over and over again.
I would also argue that this movie has more style than people give it credit for, in that and I don't, a lot of the actors he cast came from local theater.
Yeah.
Dante certainly did. Caitlin definitely did. And there are so many times where, and I don't know if this is just because Kevin Smith knew high school theater and knows about just proscenium and playing on just plain. But like when Caitlin and Dante talk, he brings her in the video store and they like stand almost shoulder to shoulder. And so her delivery is out to the audience a bit, like, "Oh, Mr. Hicks, whatever do you mean?" She's not him. She's kind of playing. And there's so many scenes where, like, I think this is where it comes into, it's the practicality of the movie and not just theater, but like, this is the space. They're behind the counter. So this is our proscenium.
Yeah.
So they have to play out.
Yes.
And sit next to each other and just kind of 3/4 turn their heads to each other, or they get creative with it where Dante's on the counter and it's because he's reading his lines. I know Randall is in the newspaper, but when they're talking about the how things are going with Caitlin and Randall's reading and one's in front, one's in back, but they're both facing forward. Like, we are getting, I hesitate to use the word creative, without blocking.
Yeah.
But at almost no point is the movie ever quarter close-up coverage, close-up.
No.
It's always two people in a proscenium performing 3/4 at each other. That's a choice. That's a style. That's style.
I agree 100%. And I also feel like it's funny because while you're describing it, you're making me realize there's a kind of nostalgia I think it might tap into for me, and I don't know for how many other people. I mean, maybe this will make sense to you. I grew up watching Peanuts, you know, cartoons, and it just makes me think about the scenarios, like the way Lucy will sit in her little psychiatric help booth, and the way Charlie Brown will come over and sit, but cheat out, and just go, I just don't understand Christmas, Lucy. Just like, Charlie Brown, I'm a bitch.
Yeah,
But then even like the way they'll just kind of sit there, like Charlie Brown and Linus will sit there and park themselves on the wall. And again, it feels like very kind of existential because it's two people like isolated. You don't get any background action. You don't get any ambient street noise or anything like that. It's just two kids sitting there discussing life, usually like at large, like, and its impact on,
kind of like Clerks to a certain degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just sitting there as the world's passing them by, just speculating, and that have the time. That's the other thing, to like have the kind of conversations you can only have when you have this inordinate amount of time to just wait, to just sit and wait on people.
Yeah, because the way you're describing that makes me think of, it's not even the end of the movie, but it's the shit off the pot scene where it's Randall sitting on the freezer and Dante lying on it.
Yeah.
So many times where maybe the camera doesn't have a visual style as far as how it's moving.
Right.
It's forcing what's in camera. It's forcing the actors to create. Again, since you're not doing over the shoulders.
Yeah.
For example, when the guy comes up on the ladder during the hockey game, it's just one shot of Dante talking to him, but you have to find a reason for him to be looking up and him to be looking down. And when Dante starts playing, he's like, "Oh, look at you! You can't even pass."
Yes,
you're forcing your actors to create something visually interesting. Three guys talking about whether they can drink Gatorade is still a locked shot, but it's again, it's three actors. Again, the style is in the staging, and not necessarily in the movement of the camera.
And that's another thing that I feel like Kevin Smith never really got or gets his due kind of like respect and accolades for. Whereas you mentioned Woody Allen earlier, he was like, especially throughout like the 70s and I'd say the early 80s, like the king of just like locking down, even though he wasn't his own DP, but he would just like, kind of like lock down the camera and just kind of let things unfold. People would be passing in and out of rooms and everything like that, but he always come back kind of like into the main playing area for a significant line, delivery, for something to change. Like somebody like comes back in, they're both having a conversation, they're both busy, and then somebody walks in like, wait, what did you say? Because all of a sudden something of importance has been shared. So I feel like, again, like I really enjoy that technique. I enjoy feeling like I'm eavesdropping, or again, like there's no distraction, like all you can just kind of like let the scene breathe, and you don't even need like Oscar worthy performances in order to achieve that, as long as it's kind of everybody's performing in unison. And that is the only way I can really kind of put it tonally, I guess.
And I'm glad you brought up performances, because one of the things that this movie, I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I don't know if you've ever felt this way on your own, but as someone growing up in theater in high school, college, and communities and stuff, that I used to always be almost profoundly moved that like there are professional actors in theater, professional actors in film, but I would look around at people that I knew and worked with, and I'm like, you all can be such brilliant performers. Like there is talent that you can look for outside of LA County and New York City. And Lord knows you see actors that come from other cities. But I used to be so like, I'm like, there is no reason someone couldn't make a movie starring these people, because these people all great singers, great actors, if you, and I love the idea that someone didn't just make a movie about their life and kind of go, well, this is what I went through, I'm going to make a movie about it. But that they actually went into the community, into literal like actors who do community theater in like Highland, New Jersey, and like got the talent and put the talent on fucking, you don't see that much. It's a true discovery and a true proof that like it exists. It's out there.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
And that's inspiring to me.
I mean, what about this movie isn't inspiring to me? I mean, especially at this stage of my life, like something about like, again, like it does seem to be very much kind of like locked in, you know, the time of your life and everything like that, and being like 22 and everything. But at the same time, the themes run so deep. And also because again, like I'm coming at it like seeing like, you know, sequel 1 and sequel 2 and and knowing a great deal
Oh,
about, you know, the filmmaker. Like, and I'm always learning more. They actually just a few days ago like dropped the first Hollywood Babylon with him and Ralph
in a
Garman
while, yeah.
in a while, and I listened to it while I was working today, and oh my god, I was laughing so hard, and it was wonderful because I feel like I got the same kind, I achieved the same kind of satisfaction and just release as I did watching the movie last night. Just kind of going like, God, I miss Kevin Smith in my life. You know, I it was wonderful to not see this movie actually for like, you know, about a decade or so, and to revisit it and just kind of go, oh, I missed you, you know.
It hasn't been as long for me, but I definitely I don't think I've seen it in about 3 years. I mean,
Mhm.
I used to watch the ever loving shit out of this.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
like you, I didn't always have to visit, but I still kept going and going and going. But yeah,
yeah,
it had been enough years that just enough years that certain beats I got to enjoy them. Not like I was watching for the first time, but I still alone laughed out loud and
yeah,
yeah, so it played still, but also this is the oldest I've ever been watching it, and especially knowing what happens in 2 and 3.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much of this I would ever save for like an episode on Clerks 3, but let me just say this. I do find it interesting over the course of the series that your first movie has Randall saying, I'm happy with my station in life, and Dante is the one that's like, I don't like it here. I want something else. And over the course of the story,
Hmm.
it's Randall who has like the epiphany in 2 of like, I want something.
Hmm.
This is what I want. And in the third movie, he has his own, like, he gets off his butt and does the thing. When you watch 1, that doesn't seem like Randall's going to be the one to do that.
No,
And I don't want to say sad because I don't want to totally judge Dante's life, but Dante over the is a bit of a sad sack. Some of it's not his fault. Sometimes life hands him a raw deal.
yeah.
And he does kind of go after something he wants in 2, but over the course of like all 3, it's when you look at that first movie, you go, hey kid, you're gonna be at that store for the rest of your life. Like,
You're
no,
gonna make
that,
me cry. No, but I mean, just to lighten things up, maybe if you just envision that, like, all of this, you think about the original ending of this particular
oh my
movie,
god,
and
yeah.
just think that, well, then everything that Dante's had has been like a borrowed time, you know, like he dodged a literal bullet. He's, you know, thank God,
Yeah,
because
I
yeah.
watched I skimmed through the original cut just to what you know I don't know if you knew this or not, but on the Clerks 10th anniversary DVD and then the 15th anniversary Blu-ray, they include the original cut that went to Sundance that includes the shooting
Mhm.
at the end and
God,
different music cues and lines that were cut and all
yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah, that I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on the ending, but I mean, talk about like I understand that young 20 something like impulse to want to try to end it that way, especially if you've seen some other movies. But when you look at the meat of what this is,
Yeah.
that's not your fucking ending, dude. And you
No,
didn't earn it, and
no.
it doesn't do anything, and it just kind of, that's one of the smartest things anyone ever told him was like, you need to cut that ending.
I mean, I don't know if about it being earned. I've definitely felt that with other movies, you know,
But
things that they don't earn. But I will say, tonally, like that, if
tonally,
I
it's
that,
grim.
and especially for someone like me who like you give me what I'm going to leave the theater with, and that will totally affect like my
Oh yeah,
opinion on whether I'm revisiting this or not, because it's either the way it ends in the theatrical release, you know, the ending that we all know, and I go like, I'm gonna watch this 80 billion times in my life,
yeah.
and I only have like half of that left to go now, but or you end it the way it did in the original time, and I watch it maybe 2-3 times in my lifetime tops, because it's just such a bummer at the end.
Yeah.
Even if you want to like get all film schooly about it and go like, yeah, but that's what it's about, you gotta live for today. Like that. I'd be like, yeah, but what did I spend these 89 minutes sitting here like giving all my time and to this person who just like fucks everything in his life up and then loses his life. It's like that's not a good time.
I mean, I'm not, because again, he's young and stupid, so I don't know if I've ever been rooting for him when he's like, I'm gonna go visit Caitlin in the hospital and I'm gonna try to patch things up with Veronica. I'm like, well, I hope you fucking don't, because Veronica deserves better. But
pick one.
But still,
either visit Caitlin. This is the whole problem.
Yeah.
You dividing your time between these two women. But yes, go on.
Valid point. But I'm just saying that like the movie does end with like, well, maybe this guy's gonna figure something out. Like, we're looking forward.
Yeah.
And then to just immediately like rug pull that. I'm like, well, then what was the point of, I know that's supposed to be a tragic thing, but the movie's so funny that this isn't a tragedy, and we're trying to force it into being one. So I'm glad that they didn't do that.
It goes Blair Witch all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, and the way it's shot too, it's
POV. Yes. No, eerie.
Yeah, it's
eerie.
It's a horror movie.
Fuck. Yeah, it's terrible. It's violating.
But
and you just got me raw from like Randall saying like, if we're so fucking advanced, and what are we doing working here? Like that already like kind of like opened a crack in my heart a bit. So then you show me a murder and my heart, so anyway, go on. What were you gonna say?
No, I love, I've talked about this I think in other circumstances, and my go-to is always Star Wars, but what I call when the cinematic gods create little cinematic miracles, either adding or subtracting. My go-to example is the original Jabba the Hutt scene in Star Wars wasn't very good. So when it's like, oh, it costs too much to do the effect for Jabba, like, oh, we cut it. When you put it back in the movie with CGI, you realize like, well, it's kind of a pointless scene, and it portrays Jabba too soft. Han's saying the same dialogue he said the scene earlier with Greedo. This was cinema. This was fate. This was the gods in the clouds doing this movie a favor.
Yeah.
I think that happens here because, hey, you're closed isn't meant to be an end beat. He wrote a script or Dante gets shot. That's his ending. Yeah. It's amazing what editing and music can do. A story I heard recently is Tom Cruise was going over like when they were test screening Mission Impossible 5. And they were using for the finale of the movie a few different music cues to fill in the space. And the test scores were bad, and they were saying that it feels like it's got 3 or 4 endings. So the studio's note was, we need to like edit and tighten the end of the movie. And Tom Cruise is like, no, that's not the problem. The problem is that these songs that we're using all like end. And then we play another music track that feels like it's ending. So the audience is like hearing ending. See, so he's like, I forget who he talked to, but he's like, just write us up like 20 minutes of just music straight that we can use. Play that 20 minutes over the ending, do it again. Same movie, all the test scores are through the roof. Studio wants it, alter it. Tom Cruise doesn't know it's the music.
Yeah.
I bring that up because even without any score, right? Like Randall's at the door, goes outside, throws the sheet in, you're closed, Dante goes around the corner and the scene goes on.
Yeah.
That's a fucking ending when all you do is go, you're closed, dun 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 dun, credits go and the song is going. That is your ending to a movie. It's an ending because music. Like fuck, dude. And not only does the music make it an end beat, but he is, again, the cinematic gods of fate. Go, that's your end line.
Yeah.
And also, like, the movie's over. Your shift ended. You're closed. Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it gives like almost like it's almost like the movie gently chucking you on the chin at the end, just kind of like, as opposed to shooting you in the face.
Yeah, no, it leaves you on just a little shoulder tap.
Yeah, just kind of like, all right, we had a good time. And but it also just kind of makes it all so much more accessible, like, you know, like just in terms of the relief at the end of the day. Maybe that's another part of it. It's just kind of like, we all know what it is to be at the end of a shift, even if you've worked like longer than you wanted to. That'll make the end of the shift even sweeter, you know, like. And I do have to say, like, Dante, this particular screening really actually did get my sympathy early on, when because I had forgotten that he had actually closed the night before.
Mm.
And I haven't, and in my particular job, we don't open and close right now, and I haven't really done that in a while, because I've tried to stay away from kiosks and stores, and, you know, like any kind of, like, you know, structures that are built where people are supposed to come to us until we kick them out and close the doors and lock them. But I remember how agonizing it would be when you would have to close at night and then come back the next morning and it felt like you never left.
Mm-hmm.
And even those hideous nights when you would dream that you were working, so it really feels like you never left. Do you ever do that? You ever have a dream that you worked a full shift in between two shifts?
No.
Oh, it is the
Sounds
worst feeling
awful.
in the world. Yeah.
I mean, I've worked closed, and then the next day I worked an opening, and you know,
Yeah.
if someone we still call it cloping, like, oh, I just closed and now I'm opening.
Yeah.
Clopening, you know.
Sucks. And even the way, the expression on your face, obviously you're ecstatic about it.
Yeah. People could tell, like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, nobody
Well,
wants
yeah, and
that.
also, God, what's fascinating that I never thought I'd say this is fascinating, but you know what I thought when I was watching the opening scene?
Hmm.
Do you remember in an age before these, before you could just go to bed and put your phone on silent,
Mm-hmm.
where you always had a phone in a room, and at any point, if some asshole like after midnight called you, you're like, what the
Oh,
fuck?
no.
You know, people, you get an emergency call in the middle of the night, like, what's wrong? That a phone, the fact that Dante like was like, what, and like reached for the phone, I was like, oh yeah, if some asshole called you in the morning, they disrupted your
Ah!
sleep
And
and
if
you
you didn't
had
have
no
call,
control over it.
and you don't have
Not oh
caller ID, so you don't know that it's the store calling, so you
right,
answer
so you
just
have to answer
hello.
because it could be anyone
Yeah. And then you
important.
hear a voice from someone you work with, and you're like, fuck, no, I shouldn't have answered the phone.
Right.
Why did I answer the phone?
I'm
Yeah.
not saying like, oh, Gen Z, but like I wonder if someone from Gen Z is like, why can't he just put his phone on silent when he goes to bed? It's like, oh, it wasn't like that then.
Yeah, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It
And
was,
it, you just, the world, you had to trust the world would be courteous to like not call before 10, didn't call too late. Do you remember like in high school, you call your friend and then
oh,
the parents like, hey, you're like, hey, it's 10:01. Hey, no
mm-hmm,
calls after 10. It's like, oh, but it's really important. You know, like
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
certain parents,
Absolutely.
you have to be like, oh, well, you know, fucking Tim's parents, you can't call after 8. Like, oh shit, good to know. You know,
Yeah, they were always there was really stringent about calls that took place, like that were made after a certain time. But I had,
yes.
so my way in was start early and just talk, like call them at 8 and then talk for 4 hours. That way they'll let you talk until midnight, maybe even past then. And then go, okay, I think it's about time, you know, you got school tomorrow or whatever. And then
Oh,
you're just like,
the
oh,
worst,
so okay,
the
you
worst
got
is when the
school
parent comes
tomorrow.
on. They're like, hey, it's time. You have school. Like, oh
Oh,
God.
oh, that's terrible.
The
Yeah.
worst is when you were talking to someone you liked and you're like, oh,
I don't think my parents did that
I got that.
often.
Yeah,
I
only when I was
oh
stupid enough to be up that late. But
okay.
and well, okay. And the other one that is and again just blasting the this is what dates the movie. You know that
Mhm.
Randall sees the wedding announcement in a paper, and
Ah,
that and Dante's mad that like you know it was in the paper, and that one customer is like, oh hey congratulations I saw the announcement in the paper. Like people in this world got
yeah.
their data from reading newspapers because we didn't just like if that movie was made now, it'd be like some wedding announcement that they saw on like, oh, my mom's happy she posted that on Facebook because
Mm,
everyone would have been getting their data from a thing in their hand and not,
yeah.
you know,
Screenshots.
or hearing about it from someone. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how the more time goes on, like yeah, aspects of the functionality of the world are dated, but at its core, you know, not knowing what you want when it comes to a girl and being young and stupid and like
Yeah.
these themes are eternal
Yeah. And
and enduring not liking your job and putting up with stupid people that's eternal.
yeah. even what's funny is like we've been talking about kind of like rather, personal inclinations and signs of that, like really, really a specific growth, like as predominantly as young men, because the movie isn't really all that concerned with how the women are developing, but not yet, not yet. But uh I even looked at Jay, and I was shocked because I was like, yeah, this is early stage Jay. I knew that coming in. I knew it was going to be like a Neanderthal version of him.
Mhm.
But what really, it didn't shock me, but what and I hadn't even forgotten about it, but it was just kind of like, wow, look at all the homophobia.
Oh yeah.
And where he goes, like as time goes on, movie after movie, what we learn about him, what he learns about himself and everything like that, is just kind of like, that makes me happy, like to see where he started and see an
Right.
evolution. I bring up Neanderthal, and then he evolves like into like, upright standing,
Yeah.
dimensional human being man,
Can
which
I
good for him.
can I ask you a question about Jay and Silent Bob reboot?
Yeah.
When they mentioned Netflix and he's like, "Oh, we don't Netflix and chill." He's like, "Hulu and Hump," and Silent Bob nod. Do you get the impression that Jay and Silent Bob Hulu and Hump?
uh no. Did
Okay, just
you?
wondering.
No.
No, it's funny to entertain the idea that he goes from like dropping the F bomb in Clerks to being like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll suck Silent Bob's dick." Like you watch Hulu and it gets a little gay.
No, I got a sense that it was more kind of like a thing that they shared. Like, they were so happy to have, like, we don't Netflix and chill. We Hulu and Hump, and then we talk about it
Oh,
afterwards,
see,
kind of thing. I don't know.
it wasn't my first viewing, but on my second or third, I'm like, oh, we Hulu and Hump.
I'll have to watch
Anyway,
it again and get back to you if we end up talking about that one
because
together. I'll let you know.
clearly over the course of many movies, Jay
Yes.
does show an interest in ladies, so that's no.
Oh yeah, yeah,
However, if we want to get into it, in Dogma,
yeah.
Chris Rock, tell me something no one else will know. You masturbate more than anyone else on the planet. Tell me something I don't know. When you do it, you're thinking about guys.
Dude, not all the time.
Saying he could be a little bi.
A little fluid, yeah. A
Yeah,
little.
and
Why put a
and
label?
he
Why put a
goes in
label to it?
1999 from being ashamed of it in
Hmm.
Dogma to 2019 or 2020 or whatever, like being like, yeah, we Hulu and Hump. Like I'm older, I'm wiser.
I'm gonna have to watch it in context again and go like, okay, am I getting a vibe or am I? Because yeah.
Oh, that was the thing that I kind of so a few days ago,
Oh
literally
boy.
just a few days ago. No.
Yeah.
Uh come on this journey with me. Someone on a clerks group that I'm in on Facebook
Yeah.
uh was posting about the ordering videos scene on the phone.
Yeah.
And the post is about how Jeff Anderson didn't want to say all those titles in front of the kid. So it cuts to him just ordering.
Yeah.
Um, and someone in the comments said, I always was wondering why, I always questioned Men Alone 2, the KY connection. Why would Randall be ordering gay porn? So very rarely do I engage with strangers, but I was like, well,
Mm.
it's
Hmm.
a video store and it's a business. So like gay
Hmm.
and straight people rent gay and straight porn.
Yeah.
I said, however, because his implication is like, why would Randall order that? And I'm like, he wasn't ordering it for him.
Yeah.
I'm like, but if you take into account the video that he rents for Dante,
Yeah.
or the video that the porno that he rents,
Yeah.
and that is meant for him to watch with Dante, read into that what you will. And then
Yeah.
my brain started to go, well, 3 movies. Dante gets all the girl love interest, but Randall doesn't even really.
Hmm.
There's not even like a female for him to, and nor does he ever really want. Let's play a game. Is Randall possibly gay or bi? And then I started going through it a little bit, and ultimately, like, oh wait, no, never mind. Because as much as I was like, oh, but you rent hermaphroditic porn, and when he's talking to Caitlin, he's like, hey, break his heart again, and I'll kill you. And like,
Yeah.
how much do you want to read into that? And just the fact that it is the two of them, and
Hmm.
but then I started to see little cracks very quickly that like he is looking at straight, nudie magazine when he flashes that guy I
Right.
think you could see her kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, I don't know if canonically speaking, how much the Clerks animated series counts, but you
Oh.
found out he slept with lots of women and has turned them gay. If that is such a thing, it's not how it works, but that is the joke.
That's the
You
joke,
know,
yes.
I'm sexy Randall the Pharaoh Wizard.
Right.
Randall's very straight in the cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
and then also Randall's very straight in that, and it's a bit icky, but
Well, I mean, but he and Dante
he's
do
talking
get married.
what?
In the cartoons, he and Dante do get married
So,
like a
okay, see,
couple
there you go.
times, right? So
Right.
and there's
No,
there's the guys who like put their arms around them like the leather daddies. He's just gonna like lips or hips, and he goes
uh,
hips. So I mean, he could be fluid. Like
he
you
could
know,
be fluid.
why put a label on it? But I mean,
I'm just
what I
saying, but in
yeah
Clerks 2, he very blatantly talks about all the barely legal pussy that comes into the store, and you're like,
yeah
"Ugh, that's like the wrong kind of straight. Uh,
yeah.
so much so that when he sees like the schoolgirls, they cut to him just going like, "Hey." So like, two asserts his hetero-ness, and then the thing that really kind of made me go, no, never mind. This is a fun thought exercise, but not really. Is specifically when they talk about Caitlin and how she ended up in the bedroom with Dante when she meant to cheat on him, and the guy that she meant to cheat with ended up in a bedroom with another dude, and now they like live together and raise sheep in Vermont or whatever.
Oh right.
Later in that conversation, he refers to her as leading men to deviant lifestyles, and I was like, oh, that's a very 90s way of, you
Yeah.
know that's very 90s straight terminology right
Yeah,
there. Okay.
yeah,
Oh, is that
heteronormativity in full effect. Yeah.
right? Anyway, but I went down this weird rabbit hole. I'm like, could Randall be gay? Is there enough evidence to support it? Probably not. But it was fun to think about. And there's my story.
Okay. I mean, I certainly had moments like that jumping out. I certainly noticed, like I did before, like break his heart again and I'll kill you. Territoriality. He was mine first.
Yeah.
Like it's sweet, but it's also like interesting, and also
Right.
because
I
it's
mean,
immediately preceded by the I eat cock balloon
oh yeah.
taped on the window, and there's Randall just standing there with it, with the letters floating over his head. And that is completely unnaturalistic. Like that feels like a cinematic choice because all he's doing is standing there indefinitely,
Oh yeah.
not
That's
doing
also
anything,
that's a
not
Charlie
asking, why are
Brown.
you laughing?
That's
Yeah,
a Peanuts moment. Just like standing there and holding.
exactly. Just waiting for the joke to play out. I don't know what they're
I,
laughing at, but apparently I shouldn't move.
I need the jazz piano to be playing during that shot,
That was another thing I thought about when you were talking about just like Lucy like leaning on the piano and Schroeder just banging away at it. And I'm like, that's a Kevin Smith shot.
It
But
is. Well, so break his heart again and I'll kill you. I mean, that's always been, it was mine first. We're using language to talk about like, that's fine.
yeah.
It's only as I got older, I'm like, do you want to read into that? You could read into that if you wanted to, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the ultimate thing that kills it, and if you're right, maybe he is just fluid. And I think it's
Yeah.
interesting that like over the course of these like 25 years, the movies take place. We never see him like with a girlfriend or a wife by the time we get to Clerks 3. Just I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if he's just always kind of been alone or if like we just don't ever see him like kind of just getting laid every once in a while. But the ultimate thing that I go, oh yeah, was after he talks to Caitlin and then she goes to the bathroom. You
Yeah.
see him check out her ass.
Oh,
I'm like,
totally. Yeah.
I'm like, yep, yeah.
Yeah. But I've checked out asses on women before too. So I don't know.
Hey, good for you. They're
Hey.
nice.
I mean, an ass is an ass. I remember, oh God, you just made me think, speaking of the 90s, I remember there was something that happened that I saw while I was still closeted, but I remember I liked it. It was an episode of Ellen, and it was after she came out, and she was there. She had like a handyman who was like working at her house and everything like that. And he fixed her pipes or whatever. And he was just a really, really nice guy who happened to be really, really attractive. And he walked away. And as he walked away, she checked his ass out. And I was just kind of like, good for you. Like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, because sometimes an ass is
A
just an
good butt is a
ass.
good butt. Yeah.
Yeah. You could just be like, wow, he works very, very hard. And that's impressive. Why assign, well, you go and only look at women if you're a lesbian. But
Wow, look at the
anyway.
butt on. Yeah. Out.
But also, I mean, just given like where Kevin Smith takes a lot of characters like from here on out, not even just like these, but like in other movies and stuff like that. Like, he's no stranger to giving characters a little predilection to something, or like maybe coveting something but never actually wanting to pursue it, like in reality or in dimension. Like maybe maybe it makes more sense if it's just this amorphous, like undefinable thing that you just kind of live with as a secret. I don't know.
Or you confirm it later, like Banky and Chasing Amy, and then the reveal of Banky and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back,
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, going back to like Proto J, that's something I always found interesting. I even found it interesting back then, because I know that like when you go from Clerks to Mallrats, like Mallrats is a John Hughes cartoon.
Yeah.
There's people running around the mall and the Batarang, and it's silly.
Yeah.
And I like silly.
Yeah.
And Jay in that is a cartoon character.
Yeah.
So I understand that the different Jays also reflect the different movies, and their tonality. But even when you look at the broad spectrum, even back then, I always found it so interesting that like he's so like young and aggressive, and like I don't want to say dangerous, but he's talking, I'm gonna fuck this bitch, I'm gonna fuck this bitch, and then some guy walks by like, what you fucking looking at? I kick your fucking ass. You're like, oh my god, like there's no like snooch to the nooch. It's aggressive. We're gonna find this fucker, we're gonna rip out his fucking soul. You're like if I was like a 14-year-old boy, like I wouldn't want to go near that kid. That kid, he could kick my he deals drugs. He's scary, like there's a certain charm to him, but that like lovable imp, that lovable oaf or whatever, that's not there yet. He's literally talking about fucking his cousin again. Like
yeah, I mean it's also interesting because I mean I somewhere in like what I was watching, the supplemental footage that I was watching, at one point there Jay was disclosing that this was based on him age 13 to 16, basically, that in Clerks. His character is based on him 13 16, and I'm just like, yeah, you're the kind of kid who would have scared me when I was 13 and 16, and anything in between. I would have like crossed the street, or gone to the other end of the hall, just like, I don't. He's aggressive. It makes me uncomfortable.
An aggressive. He is, when he's talking to Dante, and they're almost kind of relating about relationships to a certain degree, and he's like, let's get out of here. I'm not. He drops the F word, but there's just very much a like fuck you, like it's aggressive. I don't know where I was going with that, but it's
no, I mean, but then again, like there was also
the dumb shit where he's just like, what's a good plate with nothing? Oh shit, I fucked up. What good's a plate with nothing on it? Like that's nice and dumb. But
what is that supposed to mean?
Yeah. I don't know. She should fucking piss herself and shit herself. Like let's get the fuck out of here.
It's just insanity. But also the fact that like he could also, I found him quite adorable during the Berserker sequence, like the first chunk of it, where he's just sitting there just like, yeah, but he can't speak English good like we can.
Yeah.
He cannot speak it good like we can.
Yeah.
It's like, and he starts laughing, it's like, that's messed up. And she's like, what did he say? He's like, I don't know, but this guy's a character. I'm like, what the fuck? This was written down. And it's so random, like, and it's got that wonderful, like, again, eavesdropping like quality, to the point where I feel like, well, this is a conversation I'd be like leaning in, like, where is this going? Like,
yeah. Well, and that's what's great about those scenes. Like, we start a scene, and I don't even think you just overhear at the end of the conversation, which is, I don't care if she's my cousin, I'm gonna knock those boots again tonight. I want to be like, I'm sorry, what? Oh, look at this human vacuum, scumbag. What do you do? Just like,
yeah. Did he say
Olaf? Fucking girls think sexy. No.
Right. Oh. And I lost my shit. I had to pause it again after she said, did he say making fuck?
Well, I love me a good cut back to, and I love that we cut back to Berserker, just this beautiful
Yes.
man.
A whole other verse.
Yeah, that's the thing I like most about the original cut is all the random snowball. Like there's a lot of like
Oh.
beginning or end of a scenes where like Willem has a line that's like gone. Like Willem gets whittled down to
Mm.
very little. But
Yeah.
also, can I just say random? But I've always fascinated the magic of movies, right? When you put someone in a costume, put someone in a hat. You look. I've always found it fascinating that all the three Walt Flanagan characters, because one time he's in a hoodie, you don't even see his fucking face. The fourth,
Yeah.
but when Walt Flanagan's on camera, especially being the highly offended customer, and I think the very next scene is the egg guy.
Yeah.
For a few years, I didn't know that was one actor. So
Mhm.
that's a good job with glasses and combing hair and all that.
Yeah.
But all to say that with Scott Mosier, he put a
Yes.
hat and that beard on him, and then it's such a performance because the cadence of his voice, oh, it's beautiful, man. Oh, you two kids. Like, here's what's shocking to me. I remember being shocked when I heard the commentary and
Yeah.
found out that Scott Mosier is also the guy who wants his store to open during the hockey game.
Yes.
Shave the beard. That guy has this chiseled jaw, this handsome fucking
Yeah.
cheekbones.
Yeah.
He's like a hunky dude.
Yeah.
When I look at Willem, I don't see a hunky dude. But you take the hat off and you got that 90s floppy hair and this fucking Alec Baldwin jawline. It's fucking nuts. So that's the same guy. And he sounds nothing like him.
And then he gets to work off of himself, basically.
Yeah.
They're two separate shots shot at two separate times.
No.
Yeah. And he doesn't, that's the thing, is I didn't even notice. I noticed now because I know what Mosher looks like. But I think that's the first time like I really like was paying close enough attention where I was just kind of like, look at this is enchanting, this is adorable. I don't remember that moment kind of tickling me the way it did this particular screening. So yeah, it was again movie magic, like
It is movie magic because Willem is covering up a hunk. He looks like a 90s hunk.
All he has to do is change like the way he conducts himself, like the way he just carries himself, and the tone, the timbre of his voice, the hair length, and whether he's got facial hair or not. Yeah. Or what, like, is it just a stash or is it like a full beard? Like, yeah, and he can look like a completely different person. And maybe that's true of all of us, but I don't know. Yeah, what are you gonna say?
One last thing about Jay. It's the only, like, I don't want to say inconsistency, and I'm not calling out anyone, but I just, it's the one of the little things I always wonder how much of this is spinning a yarn. But you always hear time and time again, or at least I do, because I devour every like podcast and interview and thing that I can. That you hear that like he wrote, let me put it this way: you watch Clerks, and aside from walking in to the store towards the end and singing noich, 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 smoke and weed, he's not Jay yet till Mallrats. Mallrats is where we get like Snoogans and Snooch and all that. So much so that in Chasing Amy, at the time, I always understood when he's like Snoochie Boochies. Who says that? That's fucking baby talk. It always felt to me as and I would probably save this for the Chasing Amy episode, but like he's kind of apologizing for the cartoony baby talk of Mallrats, because I even noticed, because that's not how Jay talks in Clerks. And I always found it interesting that like Kevin Smith will always say like, well, I wrote Jay to be Jay. And he's like, why do I say like Snoogans and Snoochie Boochies? He's like, I don't know. Why do you say Snoogans and Snoochie Boochies? And I'm like, yeah, but he doesn't in Clerks. That's like a Mallrats thing. Are we kind of just like, is the story something that we spun back to? I don't know. It's just like the evidence of Clerks doesn't match the story. I always thought that, or he just maybe like, I'm going to leave that out for a sillier movie, but the Jay that we know from like Mallrats forward is not in Clerks.
Yeah,
simply not. It's a different kind of funny.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny because you're making me think about a lot of things. You're making me think about the discussion of the various attempts when they were designing the characters for the Clerks cartoon, and the one that they had the hardest time with was Jay, because they kept making him look villainous. Remember, they kept giving him like
Uh-huh.
a pointed chin and like a long nose, like giving him this almost witch-like, like Margaret Hamilton, like, or Nosferatu kind of like profile and everything like that, and making him look really imposing and
Right.
really
And they end up
threatening.
making him look cuter with the he
Yeah,
just
with
has
this
dots
little,
for eyes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And his posture, the way his shoulders like kind of slump to his hands, like
yeah, the thing is, like, all of those, I remember seeing all of those like conceptual drawings that they had when they were trying to figure out which direction are we going to go with this character. And it's not that any one of them were off the mark, it's just about like which J, or which side of J rather, do you want to focus on. And maybe it comes down to that, like when you have a character who is as much of a background, even though he's not a background actor, but as much, as much as he is just kind of like an ambient figure who just kind of like, rolls in, trolls everybody, and then rolls out. You can only get across, I mean, if you're going to get any kind of character across succinctly, you have to make a choice. And in the first movie, I it's so funny to say this, because I feel like he's more representative of kind of like the unforgiving nature of the climate that they're both working in, like, and almost like a worst case scenario, like, well, if we didn't have these jobs, we'd probably be just like Jay and Silent Bob. Like these fears that never get expressed. But I don't know, I always kind of like wondered, like, if Dante and Randall, didn't show up, didn't get the jobs, would they
yeah.
end up like Jay and Silent Bob? And if Jay and Silent Bob got the jobs, wouldn't they be just like Dante and
Yeah.
Randall?
I've never
But
thought of that way, but that's well, because to me the interesting thing about them is that they're, and it took me for the longest time, I just thought they were two funny guys outside the store, but it
Mhm.
really does click as I got a little bit older that they do serve a function.
Yeah.
And the function being that like it all comes down to, and you don't realize till the end, but when Randall was like, hey man, that guy Jay's got it figured out, right? And he's got no delusions about what he does. And all of a
Yes.
sudden we now have like an anchor to what our two leads are struggling, and we
Yeah.
have perspective. And I'm like, oh, that's so good, because you took two fools and you made them have a point. And
Yeah.
even in the original script, there was more of a point, because in the it's one of the few things I 1,000% prefer the theatrical cut.
Okay.
It's just a little tighter. But there is a line that when Jay and Silent Bob come into the store at the end of the movie and Dante has his
Mm.
epiphany, where done poisoning, today's youth. He's like, I don't know what that means. But he mentions, he's like, you're just a bigger thief than me. And Dante's like, what does that mean? And he's like, and they get in this whole debate about how, the legitimacy of your store, but like Dante's like, you exploit a weakness. He's like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, people can't control themselves and you make money off it. And like Jay's like, so do you. Like, you charge this much for soda's cheaper somewhere else, but like they're here. And but they actually kind of explore this idea of like
Yeah.
comparing their, yeah, because I always found it so funny. And to me, that's the other telling thing. I love that when Jay's inviting Dante to hang out, he says, we get off work at the same time. And I love that it's so cute that to him,
That's his
or
job.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're all here working.
And yet at the same time, that's not a delusion, that's just like his perspective. It goes back to Randall expressing earlier in the movie, people dictate their own behavior. And so it makes sense that he would actually praise Jay later on when he's, giving the speech at the end. See, but what's interesting is like, speaking to the environment, like then you have other people who pass by, and this is something that I'm sure it occurred to me when I was younger, but it really, and also maybe it's just because, I never took notes for a pod before to discuss this movie, but so like the most we ever did is just kind of this, just not with cameras, but so I'm sure it must have like, at least it must have hit, but I don't know how much I articulated it to myself. But I just wanted to touch on like some of the people who pass by who don't like kind of get made fun of, or get something unfortunate happened to them, like it's just they're just passing by, and then they leave. And
Oh,
the first one, huh? Yeah.
go ahead. I was
Well, the
about
first
to.
one that I wanted to talk about is the guy who talks about how independent contractors allow personal politics to inform their decisions with regard to potential clients. And I was watching it this time because I'm always interested in that exchange. But for the first time, I was watching it wondering, because I knew where they were going with it. So I leaned in. And I just wondered, why is this here? Why are they talking about it? And all I could think, and all I can think, is it's hope. It's a new hope. It's in its odd way what because they're both arguing about, like, the Death Star, and about like how those contractors, like, were, their backs were up against the wall, and here this sweet government contractor, they're like, what are you going to do, say no? Of course you're going to say yes, and you're going to destroy it, and it's just, just going to be a victim of the system, and you didn't have anything. And this guy comes along and tells them, no, you have free will. You have, if you like,
Okay.
I am an independent contractor, I live the life that you're hypothesizing about right now, and I'm telling you, I saved my own life because of personal politics, because I listened to my gut, and I steered clear of a situation, and now I'm here telling you the tale and everything like that. It makes it, and basically, like, imparting to them, like, it makes a difference, which brings up the next person. When they're watching the guidance counselor with the eggs, and the woman comes up, and she tells them about shell shock and related to the egg trials and everything like that, and says the line, the line always resonated with me, but she says, it's important to have a job that makes a difference, boys. That's why I manually masturbate caged animals for artificial insemination. And yet again, hope. Like, it's like these little lights are just kind of being, like, dropped in, or even just kind of, like, cascading by, like, like cars on the highway. And if you have your eyes open, if you have your entire sensory apparatus, like, open and willing to kind of, like, take things like that in, and to be inspired by it, and take action, then follow that inspiration, back it up with some action, who knows what you're capable of? Maybe you'll find something new about yourself. Maybe you'll change something, and maybe you won't even realize that it's changing until you look in the rearview mirror and go, like, wow, I made a change.
And these are signs for Dante, and
Yeah.
he's just not reading them.
And yet he fancies himself like the proselytizer. And for me, it's never more, I mean, it's throughout the movie, but one of my favorite moments, even back when I was younger, that I knew it, like, that was smart, Kevin Smith. I'm glad you wrote it that way. Guy with the Pringles can.
I was about to bring him up. Yeah.
Yes. And he just says, like, sometimes you got to let those hard to reach chips go. And I'm just like, that's your whole life philosophy right now. You're
Yeah.
perfectly content until you're not. But then your pendulum will swing backwards and forwards, or the cycle will just keep going. You'll just keep hitting the same 2 points over and over again, whichever metaphor works better for you. But you're going to reach a point where you're dissatisfied, but then you're not going to do anything about it. So you're going to go right back to kind of like resigning yourself to being satisfied without any hard to reach chips at all. Just let him go. But the irony is, then he pours them into his hand. Like, he finds a way to embrace. So he's got possibility literally in his hand, and he's not paying attention to it. Yeah.
I'm so glad I have you on for this one, because in the last several minutes,
Yeah.
I feel like a Kevin Smith listening to a Mark Bernardin. You're the smart one, explaining all the stuff told slow Joey over here,
Well, thank you very much, sir. I don't see us that way. You've articulated quite a bit of things to me over the years, like, that
but
don't occur to me. So, but
you're,
thank you.
you're laying down some good
that.
stuff right here.
Thank
I
you.
see, and then that's a much better read. My only read from that was that like, I think it's, I'm gonna try to retrace my steps, but it was twofold. One was that for a lot of people, they tend to, especially Randall, will make fun of the guy who's offended by the language he's using.
Yeah.
The guy who's reading the Weekly World News, the guy who says nice cat, what's his name?
Yeah.
It's very easy, if some roofer guy goes, "Hey, what do you?" It'd be very easy for Randall to be like, "Mind your own business, stranger,"
Yeah.
just like everyone. So what is it about him? And I always just thought maybe it's because I'm a working class guy in a store, and this guy goes, "I'm a roofer," and it's like, "Oh, you're not just reading bullshit.
Yeah.
You got the blue collar." Um,
Hmm.
Same thing with the other one. Both of their stories are profession based.
Yeah.
I just thought
That's true.
maybe that was the connection. And then I also realized maybe it's also the fact that everyone else is like just kind of declaring shit, whereas both of these people are explaining and informing them of something.
Yeah.
Like they're listening because she's explaining what shell shock is. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
bring something to conversation. You're not an idiot. You're not reading Weekly World News. You're not asking me a stupid question. You're not asking
Right.
me about how much does this cost.
Right.
You are proving your worth by
Yeah.
galloping information. Therefore, I will listen and not treat you like shit.
Yeah, because you have something of value to share as opposed to just
Yeah.
like your idiosyncrasies, whatever it is that's your idiosyncratic routine that's going to keep bringing you
Ah,
back to quick
because
stop and RST video.
because I guarantee you, if Randall had been in the room with the Pringles,
Yeah.
he would have been an asshole about it.
Oh yeah.
In
Oh.
fact, and I kind of respect that he's not, but it is somewhat not telling, but like Randall goes, I forget what exactly he words. He's like, "Hey, do you know what I just saw?" Oh yeah, because he just saw Return of the Jedi, and he goes, "What, me pulling the can off some moron's arm?" And I'm like, "See, he's not giving you information. So even though he's gone, like he's a moron. He's not
Hmm.
a conduit of data for you to like. I don't know.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true. Oh God, this movie.
so much, so much.
I mean,
Um,
yes,
can I go off on another like theme?
please.
Because at least this is personal for me. How
Oh,
not again, probably one of my favorite artistic creative people out there.
yeah.
Partially defined my whole personality on being a fan of his. So like the one thing I always found interesting is that I am 10 years younger than Kevin Smith.
Hmm.
So one thing that I've always managed to kind of his movies always prepared me for my next step. And I always kind of like because I was not Dante and Randall's age when
No,
Clerks came out,
no.
but it taught me things in advance of what not to do. And Chasing Amy also prepared me for things.
Yeah,
And do not fucking be this guy.
yeah.
And the Clerks movies have always kind of managed to do that too, because there's certain things about these guys in their 30s when I'm in my 20s,
Hmm.
and being at that age and not having found what you want to do yet. And so now it's fun to watch Clerks in my 40s looking back on the young kids with all this potential and all that. But I just want to say
Yeah.
that like at least there's two well actually I don't know if it's just two, but there was basically I was always kind of knew what to expect and try and hoped what to avoid entering into my 20s.
Hmm.
A little tiny one that there's other people might learn this however they want to learn, but this was the movie that introduced the idea to me that like at least according to Caitlin and therefore to me, and I don't think this is TMI, this is just like how people kind of function, but like to her, like sex was special that you say for people, but oral, you like someone, you just go down on them, like who cares? And that like into my teens and 20s, like taught me the idea that there are stages to activity based on like
Sure.
in the moment versus what you hold. And I went, oh, that's interesting because I always pretty much just knew like kissy kissy and sexy sexy, but like oh, there's value and
Hmm.
degrees. And I went, oh, that's like little like 15-year-old me was like, oh, I gotta remember that in the future. That's okay. Huh. Um, but also just there was lessons to be learned from Dante
Yes.
from a very young age. Even though I understood the humor of 37,
Yeah.
I also knew do not get this judgy and
Hmm.
insecure and worked up and out of shape. It's unbecoming and it's also not right, not nice.
Yeah.
So very early on, I would often like, I don't want to say don't be like Dante, but it's like, yo, don't be that guy. And
Certainly
and
not
to
in this
me,
movie.
but that to me, these are like guiding, like like a guiding light post up ahead, the Twilight Zone.
Mhm.
But like it and also, we make this mistake both. I think everyone does, but you got to try not to. Was um the way he's pining over Caitlin,
Mhm.
and the fact that she cheated on him 8.5 times, and that he
Yeah.
still, you know, has got the treasure trove right here, and just
Hmm.
the dangling carrot of it all, and
Hmm.
the way he has to be so like whiny and defensive explaining himself to Randall. I'm like, ooh, these are all things that I haven't lived yet, but I'm already learning to avoid this.
Yeah.
So it's weird that like as I got older, I could also view the movies on the same ages as the characters, but for all of
Hmm.
them, they were like educational.
Oh
They were
yeah.
they were lessons for me to learn in advance, and they I don't. It's weird to say that Kevin Smith movies always prepared me a bit for the next stage.
Yeah. That makes sense. If nothing else, to never have your significant other point out to you exasperatedly and at a loss, like, just finally almost kind of giving up in that moment. You don't know what you want, to put
Mm-hmm.
somebody into that kind of like level of uh I don't want to use the word hysteria because she's not hysterical. She's lucid. She's just a
Mm-hmm.
little emphatic with her speech. Like she is finally kind of like unleashing
Yes.
all the stuff. Okay, this is perfect because I just had a friend who broke out of a long-term situation she was in with a significant other, and the way she put it, and I don't think every relationship is like this, but I think the relationships that people should probably either work on or get out of are like this. She said, I got used to just shutting it off, just turning my head and just letting it go. And I'm like, in certain instances, I can understand where that might be useful. If it's not worth arguing about, then okay, maybe do I really need to know? I'm just hungry. I'm tired. I'm, angry. I'm lonely. I'm whatever. Like, okay, in those cases. But when that's what you spend most of the relationship doing, when you're just kind of like, just gonna sustain and just not focus. I'm just
Mm.
gonna shut down my sensory apparatus and pretend I'm somewhere else. Like um and it just I feel like that's where Veronica's been. Even with their banter, it seems to be like this pleasant, really, really pleasant distraction. This even fun, like kind of like little bickering they can get into and everything like that. Even when they are kind of like when he's, how many dicks did you suck and all that. Like again, more toy box theory, and we're just kind of like we're not talking about the real issues between the two of them. It's not like his disrespect for her isn't real, but like there were some major issues. The fact that she moved there for him, like everything we've already
Right.
covered as far as like what Veronica has sacrificed to try and make it work with him, only to have Randall, of all people, be the one to tell her. Whether Dante put him up to it or not is immaterial. It's the truth. It wasn't Randall's truth to share with her, but I think he legitimately did think he was doing.
Yeah.
I
That
think he
in that
legitimately thought he
case,
was doing a favor to
100%.
Dante.
In that
Yeah.
scene, he thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
odd. by by
I mean,
completely meddling in someone else's romantic affairs, like that
but
that's Randall's youth, that and
sure,
his naivete.
yes. Um, well, that's the thing is, it's not his place, but it is. But if he truly believes that Dante is too ineffectual to fucking do it himself,
Mhm.
after we just had this speech about being comfortable and shit or get off the pot,
Right.
um, but also let's unpack the idea that what if it isn't his place? What is the if it's not his truth, and if he's not doing it because he thinks it's right, why is he doing it? I still think he means it, but
Mhm.
there isn't some It's got to be because there's any ulterior motive. I want him for myself, or I want to break you up for like though none of those stick. I've seen scenarios in my life where someone has done that,
Yeah,
but in the end, it's not about the other person that they're doing. It's entitlement. I'm trying to hurt this other person.
right.
I'm doing it under the guise of the truth. And I don't see that with Randall. I don't think he's out to hurt Dante.
Or Veronica. I think he has the
No.
same amount of disdain for her he has for anybody else who walks into their establishments.
It,
But
in fact, for a guy that gets called out for spitting water on customers, he really thought like he was doing a good deed.
yeah, or didn't care. I mean, with the water, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, but thought he was. I think he did. I think. But at the same time, like it was also Randall's probably always going to have two separate objectives. One will be the main objective and the other will be the perk. Maybe the perk was just kind of like, this will give me something to do for the next 15 minutes. You know, like he might have just been sitting there in the RST bored out of his mind. And then he sees her walking by like, hey, Veronica, let me talk to you. Because we don't see how they end up.
No.
Like how he gets her to come into the RST and sit down. We don't know. Like, so I wonder how they landed there actually. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's very, I mean, they're right next to each other, so it's easy to imagine.
Yeah.
But what I love about that scene is the next scene, because if Dante's your hero of the story, you know, yes, this is bad for him, but it's also a wake up call. He needs to hear it. Also, he's cheating on his girlfriend, so he deserves this. But the thing that I like about this scene is that everything she's saying to him is true.
Yeah.
And it's also all connected to the scene that they had earlier, and they were painting nails. And this isn't a complaint. It's just that if in a perfect world, she would have come to this conclusion on her own. Well, she already had these thoughts in her, but she would have, it wouldn't be because Randall told me and now I'm mad and I'm vomiting it all out of you, because the truth is coming out, but it's coming out in anger. And wouldn't it, for her sake, wouldn't it have been nice if she just sort of said, you know what, enough's enough. I moved, and you know what, I put in the time. You're not willing to kind of meet me, and then everything she says, you don't know what you want, but I'm not going to sit around and waiting for you to figure out what you. These are all truths that I wish in my heart that she could have come to without Dante cheating on her and without Randall rug pulling it in front of her, and it coming from, basically there's an extra emotion there that I just wish she didn't have to go through.
Oh, I understand that 100%, because the horrible thing is I feel like she had to go through all of that because she legitimately, I mean, okay.
I mean, that might snap her out of it. I'm just saying, but
yeah,
I just wish she didn't have to be snapped out of it.
Also,
Dante, I don't know if Dante would have heard it if if it was being yelled at him.
No.
And one of the best things about that scene is when they cut to him on the ground, and it's like he is listening. If you ever want to see an actor with no dialogue processing everything, look at his eyes. Like he is
pain. That's one thing. Brian O'Halloran has always been really, really good about absorbing. Like that's why now I can say, like, I think he's a really, really good Dante, actually, because he absorbs things really, really well. He's a good sponge, you know. But in terms of like what you're talking about, I don't think she could have gotten to that point without learning the way she did, and then the truths that she did, you know, from Randall about like what Dante was doing behind her back. Because I believe that she legitimately, as much as you can after 7 months, I forgot it was only 7 months they were together, but so after as much as you can, I believe that she loved Dante, and that makes all the difference.
It's just everything she's saying, none of it's new. It's all an extension of what she's already been saying. It's just so I don't know.
Well, and also things that we probably suspect, like when we find out, like, oh, I was sick missing him. I'm just kind of like, you poor thing.
Yeah, I know. I want so much for her.
She's gonna get it.
She gets up on the thing with the fire extinguisher. She's got like a little coat, like a little jacket. And I just
She's spunky as fuck. I love her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And lasagna.
I know.
She even made a joke that it was peanut butter and jelly with the crust cut off, which would have been delightful, but it was fucking lasagna.
And she and all one, the lasagna is good, but two, and this matters to me, she refuses to be shamed about all the dick she sucked because she has no reason to be shamed.
Yeah.
And I love that she's like, fuck you for no.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
At the same time, she did shame him for being a pig when he told her how many women he slept with.
Yeah.
She's human. She's
Well,
young too.
yeah.
She's 22 also.
Well,
She's allowed.
exactly.
She's allowed to make mistakes.
I don't know. Well, okay. I don't want to get into it, but here we go. Real quick. No. Just the concept when people this bugs me a lot in life. And if there are any like incel guys out there, listen to this because this shit, take this in. When people do that, when they equate one thing to another, I'm like, it's a false equivalency sometimes. And you go, how come if a guy did that, he'd be canceled or something? It's like, well, no, because we don't live in an equal world already. So things don't go equally. So if she's living in a world where fucking we pat guys on the back for fucking plowing everything, that's why she can stand by her 36 dicks, but also hit him over fucking 3 girls, is because the way a woman's role and sexuality in the public, the scales are tilted, and in that regard, I don't get upset at her for being mad at his sex.
Well, because I also thought about something else that kind of like,
it's a false equivalency.
It tips the scale in her favor for me as far as the way the conversation goes, the way you conduct yourself when you have exchanges, of a potentially delicate nature, like, your past lovers and things like that with the person you're currently with. It can go wrong really, really easily. But if you move forward, even if you're going to like smack them on the head and call them a pig, I love the fact that Veronica uses that as an opportunity to share the number of people that she had sex with. When he finds out how many guys she went down on, it is a diatribe of accusations and judgments and just like a wall of you. And then she comes back later and just like more shaming and everything like that. And it's like, oh boy. And then she has to hear it from fucking Randall. She's got guys following her out into the parking lot.
Well, that's Dante's fault.
Yeah, that's Dante's fault. But because he has no problem exclaiming from the rafters. Like, that was another thing. The exchange that they had when he disclosed that to her and she disclosed her number to him was, behind the counter, isolated, painting nails and all that. He is screaming at the top of his voice in full earshot of any stranger in the parking lot, inside the structure, and inside the quick stop. And that's embarrassing. Oh God, can you imagine? Oh my God, I'm trying to imagine just like somebody like hurtling accusations about me and my sexual history in public, like in front of people who don't know anything about me. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's not totally real. It's also, but it's funny that you bring up Randall though, because I love in a weird way too that aside from after this happens, he just makes the 37 joke and but I also love that. Well, first of all, I love fucking Randall. He's like, well, I had to tell somebody, but he helped put it in perspective. Like in that scene, he's already a better person about it.
Yeah.
And why? Because he talked to Randall about it, and Randall made sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like about this movie and those characters is they aren't just foils for comedy and like we've already talked about. There's a lot to Randall as far as what he wants and how smart and how much of it's a choice and how much of it isn't, and just the fact that there is so much wisdom that comes out of him, and sometimes even in the same scene, poke, but he is, that's the right response. Like, dude, who cares? You're never going to see them again.
It makes Dante a kind of not just a perfect foil like on paper for Randall, but this is the thing, when it's given more dimension when you think of these as actual living, breathing people, and think about like the patterns of a friendship or just any kind of working relationship, and they have both, where I'm sure part of the incentive to keep bugging Dante, or just keep being in his vicinity, is as long as Randall is around Dante, Dante's always going to be more fucked up than Randall is from Randall's point of view. So there will always be someone who is, in his eyes, the problem, but the one who can also absorb my problems, the one who's gonna wring his hands and exasperatedly just kind of like fret over what I did or what I might have said, or you could have done this. Imagine a million different scenarios if you would have like done that, and if I wasn't here to save you and everything like that. There's also a safety in that. Like, there's someone who cares about him in a weird way, who cares enough to pay attention and to get all worked up. Like, I mean, I've told
no, because half the things he's getting worked up about are things that Dante should be concerned about, things that would make Dante better.
Yeah.
It all comes back to that phone call.
Yeah.
Even spitting water at life, like, is kind of a lesson that Dante could learn. It's a horrible way to kind of depict it and everything, but and then of course he turns it and makes it about himself. He goes, I'm your hero, but like in a weird way, it's like, but I should be your hero. You need to be taking notes.
Right.
Don't apologize to your boss for coming in on your day off.
But he also gets to feel like not a model citizen, but kind of like an ideal nomad, of like this, who's wandering.
He likes to think he's the master of his own destiny.
Expense. Yeah. Exactly. And he gets to feel that way. Whereas, and we touch on this, subsequently in other iterations of these characters, and I won't go into it, but we know for a fact that he kind of needs Dante, because if the second Dante isn't there anymore, it's like, okay, no more bits. Mm-hmm. Now I'm just an angry, lonely guy,
right?
And I don't have anyone to share it with. Misery, sometimes it really does love company. Mm-hmm. And I mean love.
And also, you want to look at misery, take a look at Dante here.
Exactly. Like, at least I'm not Dante. Yep. I'm not some hideous fucking chud.
But and they say this like and it isn't just sitting around and talking about Star Wars. Like, it is,
it's personal, maybe. And you know what? And my immediate suspicion when I was younger, I remember, and again, I was closeted the first time I saw this, but the reason why I'm only comfortable, I'm not comfortable ever calling like Randall gay, but I'm thinking maybe either fluid or just without a label. I'm fine with Randall just kind of like being Randall. That's what Randall is. Or Randall's sexual orientation is Randall.
Yeah, if there's like a Kinsey scale, I don't know, maybe his dot goes above or below somewhere.
And it fluctuates. Right, sometimes it fluctuates, like, whatever. It is what it is. But for me, I think the biggest justification for things like, he was mine first and lines like that, even just like the possessive nature that he feels for him and the affinity throughout like their friendship. I think oh, now I'm thinking about Clerks 3. Why'd you do that to me? But I think it's Kevin Smith's way of letting us know these guys aren't just buddies, and they aren't just co-workers. These guys love each other, and they need each other. And given the world, of like New Jersey 1994, that's going to manifest in some very specific ways, especially between like two cis het, white guys who are 22. And for all of those reasons, all I want to do is just like embrace Kevin Smith and just tell him, you nailed it. And he doesn't need that from me. He knows. Mm-hmm. he goes on and on about like, I made one good movie. And I don't believe that. I really don't believe that. I don't think he believes that either. But I think, get them before they get me. Or get me before they get me. And
he's talked many times about that mentality. And I get it to a certain degree or a certain amount of time in life. But like, enough's enough. Like, you just, in my personal opinion, you can stop with self-deprecation.
Yeah.
I just hope for that someday. We can stop, just stop. You made many, many great movies. We don't need to ever, because he used to refer to himself as, I'm the guy that made Jersey Girl. And then later, I'm the guy who made Tusk. I'm the guy that made the Walrus movie. I'm the guy that made Yoga Hosers. I'm the guy that ruined He-Man. Like, no, just shut the fuck up. You're awesome. You don't need to
Yeah.
deflate the argument before they come at you. Fuck the argument and fuck them is what I think.
Yeah, but
Fuck them.
we're talking about a
I know.
lifetime
I
of
can't
building up a
control his
wall.
brain. I can't control his brain and how he
Yeah.
operates. I know. I know.
But we
But
love him. We love
oh,
him.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. I'm glad you brought up just towards the end there. The Randall and the, you know, break his heart again and I'll kill you.
Yeah.
He was mine first because the one thing where I always it's when I think she says or he's like, hey, it was mine first, and Caitlin goes, oh, so cute. I
Yeah.
go, right,
Yeah.
like and he means it,
Yeah.
but also
It's
like
sweet.
it is sweet.
Yeah.
um I don't know how, I don't think we really talked much about Caitlin, but she
Yeah.
showed up as a performer.
Yeah.
I she does such a great job of bringing the kind of energy
Yeah.
that I would see why you would keep, if you're a young man, keep coming back to her in high school after she cheats on you 8 times. I
Uh-huh.
can see why this fool would be up at night calling her and dreaming of being with her, and like I get it. And I also get from her like where her focus is and how like it
Mm.
wouldn't be Dante. I'm like, oh, I could see you cheating on him 8.5 times. I
Mm.
completely buy that. I'm not judging, but like it's a focus and it's a regard. It's what do you regard him and what is, important to you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not this, it's those other dicks. And I also, she's not even that older, but I already see that removed from high school
Yeah.
where, oh, now like maybe I'm with Sang or just in this world, and
Yeah.
oh well, you were always there and you're still there, and now I
Yeah.
now I'm ready to accept slash settle for this. And she shows up for like, you know scene in Quick Stop, scene in RST, another scene in Quick Stop, and nails it out of the park.
Yeah.
Nails it, hits it out of the park,
Hits it out of the park and nails it.
nails
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, there's also
And there's
just like,
also, and
yeah,
lastly,
go
there's
on.
also a chart, like the way she speaks, like it's
Hmm.
like I get why you'd want to like be around her.
Mm. I mean, for
Maybe not,
me,
maybe not you,
yeah, like
a
you.
20-year-old little cishet,
Yeah, I think I feel like Caitlin's the kind of person, for me personally, I feel like I could see myself then or now meeting at a party, drinks are flowing, make her laugh a few times and make a good impression and everything like that. Maybe she'll even make me laugh. Who knows? She seems, to be able to toss the ball back and forth conversationally and everything like that. But I don't want her to have my number and I don't want her to be able to contact me
Yeah.
because this is the thing. Little self-absorbed, like just a
Okay.
little, just a red flag way, you know?
I would just say this because
Yeah.
I was speaking very highly of the actress
Oh yeah.
and of what Dante would find appealing. But let me just
Right.
say 2 words: bad news.
Yeah.
It's bad
Well,
news
this,
right there.
you know what I never actually even thought, and while you were talking about her, I just kind of realized there is a different script somewhere or a different scene that you could write, if Dante actually did end up kind of like seeing where things could go with Caitlin after this movie or something, where you could give him maybe not word for word, but in a genuine similar feel, the speech that Veronica just kind of like vomits out, like at the end. I could see Dante unleashing that same level of passion and just I keep saying exasperation, but that's what he brings up for me. But and all of them do when they just just unleash, just here's my everything unfiltered kind of thing. Yet concise and really, really succinct. But I could really see him unleashing that on Caitlin whenever he would kind of like meet, because that's the thing. He hasn't met his level with her, his limit with her, but there is a limit with most people. And I
Right.
feel like he could.
Veronica reached
Yeah,
her fucking
she
limit.
reached her fucking limit. And so again, like that food chain thing, it's so effective. It's so, I wonder how much Kevin Smith knew what he was writing in terms of just like this exoskeleton of like, you know, like the family tree of like friendship and relationships, and like,
Mhm.
you know, like what we hold on to and what that means and what we have and how we can't see it for what it is, because we're convinced that everything about right now and our immediate reality is unsatisfying and just fine, you know, at best comfortable and safe. But the unknown, the thing that, if I were really satisfied with everything that I had, I wouldn't be dreaming about other people, would I? It's like, well, if you're a dick, maybe you would, or into self-sabotage, or even just, again, had this toy box theory that you keep leaning on, like, I don't really have any problems. I have every reason to reach for success, but am I going to recognize any of that? Nope. I'm going to see a series of down endings. That's what life is to me.
Mm.
And oh God, it's really grating on me, this life. It's hard, like, to watch it at 44.
Yeah.
20, I'm twice the age of these kids in this movie. And I'm watching it living like they're twice their lifetime. And I just feel, is this what parents feel like? I wondered when they're watching like their kids go through shit, like just kind of going, oh my God, I understand exactly what you're going through, and there's no way for me to share that with you in a way that isn't condescending and presumptuous, and that you're not going to take as just like dad or mom, you know, like, oh God, where did I go? I have some lighter stuff if you want to hear about any of that.
I have a bunch of, I mean, actually there's, while we're still talking about like character
Yeah.
a bit, because we were talking about Randall and the things that make him kind of tick, you know, the mystery of how much is intentional and all that. And the one thing that I didn't get to mention back then, I just want to bring up now, is just in the same way that he messes around with customers, pushes Dante's buttons. How much of it is disdain for the customers or just boredom? How much of it is trying to help Dante versus just get under his skin for his own amusement, or unintentional because it's really built out of love? There's a lot. And one of the more interesting things that's fascinated me for 28 years now, 28 and a half years, is that this guy who can spit water on people and hold up the magazine can you know, he's sitting on the counter. She's like, are these two movies any good? I don't know. What about these two? Oh, they suck. It's the same two movies. That whole exchange, and it's I don't appreciate your ruse.
Yeah.
My what? Your cunning attempt to trick me. This whole thing back and forth, like he is going out of his way to be a dick.
Yeah.
Right? She has every right to be upset.
Yeah.
Maybe even in his head, he's just annoyed because she's asking a question, you know? What's fascinating to me is that they have this whole thing. This is the last time I'm running here. As she leaves, she goes, screw you. And then he gets upset.
Yeah.
Like you so much, he gets up off the counter. You're not allowed to rent here anymore. And then I have to go talk to Dante now. Like he has to
screw me.
Yeah, screw me. Like, oh, so there is a beating heart, and so like, oh, something does get to, like, oh, and you allow that. Like, what a thing. I spent the last 28 years trying to unpack. Who are you?
Right.
You allow this to get under, you know, the ending. I was fucking with you, but you screw me?
Yeah, right.
How dare you? What is it like? He doesn't like people say screw you. He doesn't like when they say screw you and mean it. Or how dare you fucking ruin my happy fun time fucking with you? Like, I don't. Is it all of the above? What a character, this guy.
I mean, it's just as in I mean, I'm an older sibling, so I've been a jerk quite often, as my sister will attest. Especially, when we were younger, especially around the time when you first showed me Clerks. I was still quite jerky then. I understand what it is to kind of like hold the the conversation in your hand, as it were, know where the course it's going to take and everything like that, and make them play mental gymnastics in this obstacle course you've set up for them. And then you don't, maybe from your own perspective, you don't feel as though you've crossed a line. Meanwhile, the mental anguish that you have been causing is building up and building up. So when they finally, and you may not even be paying attention, you're sitting there reading. So by the time they are up to here, reached their limit, you're finally taking them in, and they say something rude, like, okay, I mean, I was manipulating you. I was pointing out your own hypocrisy and and trying to help you or whatever and everything like that. But you had to go and take it too far and resort to name calling. Like, what kind of I don't know. Like, never fathomed the Randall mind. I think he's an enigma, and rightfully so. I would love for Jeff Anderson to just write a dissertation on that character after spending this many years, with him and getting to meet him at many stages throughout his life in many different incarnations. And I don't know, just kind of find out like what conclusions can he draw about what has he learned about Randall in all of these years, because he's been inside it. And I'd read that book. It could be this thick and I'd read it.
Oh yeah. And also
Yeah.
I'd love for it to be an audiobook.
Ooh,
Only because God,
the voice.
Just every delivery is perfect. Every inflection, every time the voice goes up or comes down or dead. Like, it is. I always found it so interesting in these later years, because it's no secret. It's no secret. This is very public. He and Kevin Smith had a falling out, and then they got kissed and made up. Then they had another falling out, kissed and made up. And and one of the things that and he's especially doing press for Clerks 3, he made very clear he doesn't really like acting and everything that kind of comes with it. And I understand that not everyone's built for early calls to set or doing press and then doing more press and but and it's not like he hates it, but like he does other things and then he gets coaxed into doing it again and then reminds like, oh, I forget how much like I don't always like this.
Yeah.
The irony, or at least the misuse, the way we misuse the word irony, is that he's so fucking good at acting.
I know.
I wish he didn't dislike it so much. I could listen to him all day long.
You work in a video store. I work in a shitty video store.
Badly as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember hearing his voice on that mixtape and not knowing, who is this? It's what a delightful little sound this person makes. And then when I saw him, and also that was another thing, like seeing him like in like that opening, not opening, but that that first tableau of RST with the woman waiting outside because she knows what video she wants to rent, and then watching him Randall into the, oh my god. And I was just kind of like, why do I love this guy already? And then like when he Randall's out, like I'm just gonna like, look at you.
I know the joke is that Jay is kind of a cartoon character, but Randall is very much like, ain't I a stinker? Like,
yeah. Oh my god, I have an appetite for a Randall because I loved Bugs Bunny while I was growing up. That's why. Well, fuck, he is Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny needed a Dante. I guess Elmer Fudd was his Dante.
I mean, Daffy sure got upset, like plenty.
That's true. But I mean, Daffy was a little more proactive. Like he would hit back.
Yeah.
But and Yosemite Sam would, shoot things.
I mean, especially, Dante kind of hits back a little bit. It's usually an exasperated monologue at the end of each movie, but it does. But also, not to discredit, like Dante, there is something about two things about Dante that I appreciate. One is the way he sort of sings certain things. I'm not even
Mm,
supposed to be here today.
yeah, yeah.
Please, Veronica, the last thing I need is a lecture. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
there is a sort, it's usually when he's like annoyed, but there's a very sing-songy kind of
Mm.
that's can't be, that's what makes Dante Dante.
All the
Um,
Jedi had was a bunch of
Muppets,
Muppets. Yeah,
right?
symphony.
Yeah, it's almost Snagglepuss. All Jedi had was a couple of Muppets. I can't even.
Exit stage left, even.
Say I'm not even supposed to be here today.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah, thank you. But also, he is great at yelling, getting upset. And I know in the actor's
Yeah.
tool bag, the dirty secret is like getting mad's fucking easy. But doing it so that it feels truthful and not just like the easiest thing to do, raise your voice and fucking yell.
Yeah.
I'm 37. Like, it's hilarious because he also, God, I hate to say this, but like, and okay, it's not just straight guys, but there's a very like cishet straight male thing about getting angry at bullshit, and he
Mhm.
does it beautifully.
Yeah.
There is a very narrow focus, me and my problem, and this is what's important, and I'm gonna get mad because I forget what stand up said it, but it's really, really, at least I think really, really true. It might have been Chris Rock, that who's more emotional, men or women? And he's like, men,
Mm.
because the whole crowd's like, women. He's like, men. Women can feel many feelings at once. Men are great at feeling one feeling, and they
Right.
really fucking feel it.
Right.
And I always find it funny. And people are like, how could a woman be president? I'm like, men just
Right.
one thing. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks and like through the roof.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
but all of his exasperations, all of his anger, it's not a funny line. I mean, I guess it kind of is when the audience doesn't know it's coming, but it's his
Mhm.
delivery when what I just the casket, what I just leaned on the casket, her fucking body fell
Yeah.
out. It's fucking hilarious. And it comes out of male anger, his anger, and the truth of it. Oh, it's so. And you only get to that place when you are in a room of respect. And
Yeah.
oh my God, like I that delivery to me is a delivery to die for. Her
Yeah.
fucking body fell.
Can I also, I had forgotten about this. You reminded me of it, and I want it to kind of like piggyback on the subsequent praise that I have felt for Brian O'Halloran and his performance of Dante. Even if we just isolated it to this movie, I had forgotten that I was in an acting class, God, maybe 20 years ago, and if not more. Yeah, it was a while ago. And I remember there was a guy who was in it who was not really an actor but wanted to take an acting class, and he liked me and he wanted me to do a scene from Clerks with him. And the only reason he wanted to do
Oh,
Clerks is because I think he thought he was Randall, so he wanted to play Randall.
yeah.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, because I was the same way. I was like, oh, you want to play Randall? That makes so much sense. um and I was like, okay, I'll be Dante. And I'm telling you, it was hard because number one, I'd seen the movie so much, but the rhythm that you're talking about, I couldn't get it out of my head. And he wasn't even trying to not do Jeff Anderson doing Randall. So I just felt like it was completely
Mm.
uninspired. There was nothing new found. There was no connection. So I just did a Brian O'Halloran kind of impression the whole time. And yeah, that I haven't thought about that in a long time. I blocked out anything as far as the comments, that followed from the teacher. But yeah, it was rough. So thank you, Brian O'Halloran, for making such an Everest for me to to
For making it so
inevitably
hard.
tumble down and to my death that particular class. Yeah, it was also just while we're talking about like lines and stuff like that, I just wanted to say the exchange. I literally thought about this a few weeks ago, and I think about the exchange about once a year. if not more, but at least once a year. Just again, down below the counter nail polish. People see money on the counter, no one around, they think they're being watched. Honesty through paranoia. I think about that all the fucking time. Anytime something, either I, whether I'm like, delivering something and dropping it off, and I'm worried, like, is anybody going to pick this up? And I'm just kind of like, no, but if people, and people are being watched now because there's cameras fucking on people's like porches and stuff like that, and they still steal stuff. But I always think, just like, honesty through paranoia, they'll think they're being watched. But and I don't make that case to myself, but it always occurs to me. It scrolls through my head like I don't know, like ticker tape or something. And the one that I think about twice a year is this job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers. I don't even have to be working to think about it. I can see somebody else working and just think and watch customers behaving badly, like at a restaurant or any kind of establishment I'll be at, and think like, that poor person having to contend with this. I bet this job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customer. It's universal in that way. Crazy.
Well, and that's, I think, one of the things that helps make this movie endure as long as it has.
Yeah, and will continue to. I think I watched it and I was like, comedies from even just 10 years ago aren't faring well with today's like mentality. And while there are certain bumps, certainly like in this movie and everything like that, but that's not like what I think about when I think about the movie. I don't think, oh, that problematic movie Clerks. I think Clerks.
I mean, the problem, like, there's I don't want to say, because I'm sure someone will say fuck you, there is, but I'm like, there's not that much that's problematic about Clerks aside from some verbiage, some words. There's a few f-bombs that haven't aged well, but that was also the 90s.
Right.
And even then, like, within the context of like Jay talking about how hetero he is, but then admiring how handsome Silent Bob is. So let me joke about sucking you off, and then ew, and then go right back to being how hetero.
I hate dudes. I love women. Yeah.
Like,
say it louder, buddy. Pound that chest.
It's everything's pretty minor. Again, referring to homosexuality as a deviant lifestyle. Right. Dropping the F-bomb a couple times. One of them in an actual correct context, and the other one where you just use it as a slur that means nothing, which to me is almost kind of worse, because you just. But if anything, and it's not record scratchy, there aren't jokes at the expense of the Asian community, but there's a lot of like,
ignorance.
Well, I remember, I'll admit this now, when I was 15, when they're referring to Sang, and he goes, he's like Sang is in past tense, people would all, they would chuckle. And when he calls him Sing, it's like sing, sang, sang, and now I watch it, I'm like, no, it's only past tense in English, you idiot, phonetically. This fucking name,
yeah. But I mean,
you don't have a leg to stand on as far as making a joke and judging in this moment. It's just a very it's just this recurring, maybe the Asian designer slipped her some opium,
Right.
Although, hey, you and I have something in common. We both eat Chinese. These are all
right. Well, I mean, I laughed at that.
No. Well, that is.
I didn't feel good about it.
No. Here's the thing, though. It's not about anything systemic, and it's not anything based on prejudice.
Right.
And it's just a funny thing about nibbling bits.
Yeah. Like a play on wordplay, but
there are other things in other movies that have aged far worse than anything in this movie.
Sure. Although I feel like there was a missed opportunity, like the second they start, just putting it out there that Sang is an Asian design major. I was like, why didn't anybody have any confusion over, like, everybody just assumed that Sang was, I guess because they knew his name, but I mean, like, you hear somebody like, oh, she's dating an Asian, or she's engaged to an Asian design major. No one ever wondered, like, is the guy Asian or is the design?
Right. I honestly never even thought. I love that becomes a joke in Clerks 3. But yeah, because everyone says it. Like the guy at the counter goes, "Oh, did you hear she's marrying an Asian design major?"
Yeah.
I mean, and literally, here's the thing that's weird is everyone in this movie is fucking white.
Yeah.
So like they have to be like, oh, an Asian design major, because like apparently they don't exist in this world.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. We can only refer to them as they live their lives peacefully off screen.
Yeah.
And don't hurt anybody, I guess. Like, I mean, you know what? I do have to say, like, I'm thinking about like my assessment of Caitlin, and I'm wondering how fair I've been. And also I'm wondering how fair I've been to like Kevin Smith in terms of like his depiction of women, because I mean, I'd argue she's probably just as lost as like, Randall and Dante, even though she's like, been out of the parameters of like, the high school lifestyle that, was established for them, like, what, like 9 years ago. But she does tell Dante she knows what she wants, like probably not personally in terms of like, do I want to shack up with you or shack up with this guy? But as far as the direction her life is going to take, like she knows that she doesn't want to, like, these are things that I praised Jess, Olivia Hussey's character in Black Christmas for like knowing the direction she wants her life to take and doesn't want like to end up getting married, and having a child with this guy in a way that is, when she knows she could have the life that she wanted, and all she has to do is like make a choice, to kind of like pursue that and take the steps, necessary. Caitlin's basically doing the same thing, saying like, I don't want to get married, and I don't want to, that was a mistake. Somebody else, saw it and put it in the paper and everything like that. I don't want my life to be determined that way. I have things I want to do, and I'm not, saying is traditional, so I'm not going to be able to work if if I'm like living with this wealthy, guy. So I don't know. She's assessing, and again, she's 22
Yeah,
too. So
that's it's the assessing. The thing that's always, this isn't a flaw in the movie. It's a flaw in her character. And again, young and making mistakes, is that
yeah.
she first, when they're talking, she's like, I came here because I knew you'd be a mess, right? But then he's the one saying, we have this, we have that. She goes, that's all we've been doing. Just talk, though. It's just talking.
Yeah.
But then later in the same conversation, she's like, no, I really came down here because I'm gonna leave saying, and I choose you. So
Yeah.
I've always wondered, like, well, how much of that's been the truth the whole time, but you're just kind of playing like it's not, because this is a fucking game to you. Or even worse, how much of this is you did come here just to placate, and it has just been talk, and then within this conversation you're making these monumental decisions. Either way, like I said, bad news.
The latter one feels truer to me.
Yeah.
In terms of the way she speaks, because she also says, shit, I just lost it. So you say something now. Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of she speaks, and I had to pull this up.
Yeah.
When they're talking about, because she throws herself at him, and he like,
right.
Here's the thing that kills me, and I swear to God, I didn't catch this until this viewing.
Okay.
I offer you my body and you offer me semantics. He's just a boyfriend, Dante. And in case you haven't gotten the drift, she's admitting he's just a boyfriend.
Good.
I can fuck you. It doesn't matter, because he's just a boyfriend. And you want to be her boyfriend.
Yeah.
You want that title that
nothing
she
has
just
changed.
Explained this title.
Nothing has changed.
It's all right there. If he's just, and I didn't even catch it in my 20s and 30s.
No, he's tunnel visioning. He's totally tunnel visioning.
And she told you it all right there.
500 days of summer. But because also the thing that she says prior to like even her making, her mistaken kind of like disclosure, like, I choose you. She says when he's arguing for them, she says, I think the idea or concept of us together is far more idyllic than the actual reality of it, something like that. And that's actually that is entirely true. Like, obviously, like I can feel it in the fiber of my bones.
Yes. And he, I understand, would want to deny that and not hear it, not believe it.
Yeah.
But I find it so interesting that then she can say that and it's true, and yet still go for it. It's not the same thing, but also he offers her a date, she offers him sex. Then they come back around. He goes, hey, what about the sex? She's like, well, I'm not that easy. It's like, if I were young and stupid, I'd be very confused. But now I just have to wonder, was she serious before? But now that's becoming more real, now she's treating it more, or she's just playing games. I just
Hmm.
bad
I
news,
think,
sir.
yeah, she's definitely bad news, but they all are. That's the thing. I don't think she's any worse than anybody else, except maybe Veronica. I think Veronica's better than she is. It's,
But
because that's what we
I
do. We pit women against each other
no,
on
yeah,
this
no.
podcast.
I do not wish for her fate to be a fucking dead guy in the bathroom and go to an
No, but
insane
maybe it was
asylum.
no.
I'm
Well,
not saying I'm just
yeah.
saying like, man, that's a oof, it's a hell of a
That's
night.
a whole that I mean that's a tangent
Oh,
that
oh
I don't think any of us want to go on in our lives, in
no,
our pursuits, and our choices.
right. No one's going like, well, actually, some select few, maybe
No, but
will.
that's an
Yeah,
intention.
yeah,
They would choose that. I don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
anybody
yeah.
wants to just accidentally kind
Sure,
of like fall into a situation like that.
duh.
Yeah.
But I love that scene does result there because there's a few great. I mentioned before one of the great comedy cuts of, the one customer, Jay and Silent Bob. We cut back to a whole bunch of customers.
Yeah.
Um, I love the who the fuck's in our bathroom? We cut to the close up, but then we cut to this wide shot of the gurney with a boner, and the
Yes.
whole scene's happening. Just
Yes.
a boner in the frame, like
Even the way it's the ambulance is framed, she's in the foreground,
oh
the
god.
boner's in the background. Mosier, I think, is like
Yeah,
just kind of
Willem just gets
wafting
in.
around.
And honestly, I am haunted by her in that scene.
As am I. I'm like,
Fetal
who
and
the
just staring into
and I'm terrified because I'm thinking, who the fuck thought it was a good idea to have her seated in the same ambulance as the dead guy? Like, come on, people.
I never thought about that till right now. Well, I mean, they're both the morgue is at the hot. She's gonna
No.
Leonardo County only has a limited number of ambulances,
Oh my god! They don't have a friend or a family member
or
like
even like a
Dante can.
social worker that got dispatched.
Dante can't even give her a ride to the hospital
Right,
after all
he can
that.
leave to
Like,
go to
come
Awake,
on.
but he can't
Yeah,
leave
right.
to.
No, because they needed to create that traumatic incident at that funeral. Like the
Yeah,
traumatic incident had already happened at the quick stop, so his hands are clean. He's like, he's out of here. You're close. Oh God. But
speaking of, also another, it's not a comedy cut, but it's a great. Again, I'm not saying
yeah,
it's fucking Scorsese here, but it isn't inept. It is choices, and they're good choices.
yeah.
But the cut between Dante going, he's right. I love her. Cut to, so that's it. He doesn't love you anymore. Oh shit. That's good editing. Like these are good.
Or even just the way the attention he paid to like before you have a lot of activity, you need to kind of like keep things like at a standstill for a while, or at least establish some kind of peace before you disrupt again. And that's for me when Randall is I don't even remember what he's doing. He's just hanging out in the RST, and we follow him like going over, shutting the door, putting the key in, making sure it's locked, and then the door opening slowly and just like, Dante, and then music, rock and roll, and bread,
The bread,
action.
because everything feels like the way angry men. And then I love that they grab this piece of bread and they have the close-up hit like it's a fucking bottle of wine on his face, It's just this broken piece of bread. Oh fuck.
Like that's an action scene in a Kevin Smith movie right now.
Yeah.
As at that stage in his career, and I'm here for it. But
I don't necessarily need to go talk about the dead guy, but I do.
oh God,
No, but again, there's certain things that I've played this movie in front of people so many times, and
yes,
I remember the things people laugh at. I remember you with the number 9, and I remember multiple times, and I love when things play when just with one friend or a room full of friends.
yeah.
But when the guy's talking about, well, there's stuff in those bulbs that can give you cancer. I knew a guy who chewed glass at the circus. Oh, and he died from the stuff that's in the bulbs. No, he got hit by a bus.
That made me laugh this time too.
And then Dante's like, "Can I help you?"
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing? I love all those And the number one beat that kills every time, including when I've seen this in theaters. And we were just talking about the screw me. You're not allowed to rent here anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking brings the house down. And it's not even like a present mic in the room, and it's through a window with oh god. And that's good framing too, because it's background, foreground. Oh
Yeah. Oh, and also like I'm a big fan of the silent movie of it all with just I mean, it's not silent because there's music, but it could have been silent. I would have known what was going on.
All the collegiate words.
Well, and I love that. What Frasier stole this device, but no, when Jay and Silent Bob are just standing there and they got the boom box, and Jay's just dancing. Bob's just there smoking, smoking slowly, and then all of a sudden, arms, and it's not even a joke, but it makes me laugh. I'm just gonna like, yeah, that makes me go, yeah, like
that's actually one of the few ones that legitimately, again, was why I like the theatrical cut. Is one of the things that they did once it went to Miramax is like, hey, we're gonna pay for real songs. We're gonna license some stuff. In the original cut, the music is the same the entire time, whereas in the theatrical cut, when Bob starts dancing, it's when the song bursts.
Yes, yeah.
Like he knows the song, and I'm biding my time.
Nice.
Jay knows it's coming up. He's serving it to him, and then boom, it pays
off. It pays off. Yeah, I like that.
Can I just tell you this random little thing about getting older?
Please.
And it's not a reflection of the movie. It's just when I go, oh, I'm old. When Veronica comes and brings lasagna,
okay,
and she goes, I'm gonna have sorority meeting till 9. You get off work, you want to meet up and get some coffee? Okay. I'm like, you're getting coffee after 9? Oh, to be young. I remember that. I remember for fun going to Starbucks at 11 and ordering coffee at 11.
Not decaf. Didn't have to be decaf.
No, you kids, I used to be a kid. I used to have coffee after 9. Oof.
Yeah. And if I stayed up all night, okay, so be it.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore. Oh my god.
Well, I do it. I'm a fucking mess the next day.
I actually wish.
I get mad at myself.
I wish I could sleep 8 consecutive hours. It's like 4 hours, and then I'm up, and I have to go to the restroom or something. I don't know. Check the laundry. Oh, so
I'm not there yet, but I know I'm gonna be.
You're gonna be. But I mean, sometimes it happens, but I don't know. I'm Dante. I need a change. But one thing I will forever be grateful for with this movie is that it gave me Salsa Shark.
Oh my god.
So many Salsa Sharks over the years. We just need this shark. We're gonna need a bigger boat.
They make an official like they sell it. I don't know if they sell it online. I think they do, but at Secret Stash in New Jersey, they sell salsa, like official View Askew salsa. And I'm like, that's great. I'm like, this is gonna break in my fucking luggage. I know it, so I'm not gonna get it.
Yeah, no, oh god, yeah, the travel aspect of it. But I'd have it shipped. Oh my god, I would order it and have it shipped. Totally, I'd pay anything.
I mean, yeah, everyone talks about hockey references and Star Wars references, throughout the Kevin Smith movies. But let us not forget all the Jaws references. Yeah, and it all starts with Salsa Shark. I mean, the first time I ever saw that, I like bust a gut.
It was adorable. It killed me. I was just kind of like, that is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. And also, it was one of my sister's favorite things, and she would do it all the time, and it would make me laugh watching. Just like, God, how old would she have been? Like, I don't know, maybe 11 or 12. So you just watch this 12-year-old girl just kind of going like, sharks in the salsa, our shark.
Had she even seen Jaws at that point?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. She had seen it and been terrified of it and got scared of swimming in our swimming pool because she thought a shark would be in her swimming, because she was like, she was young.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, one of those. I don't. Do you got anything else to cover? I think I might be good, except for huge black cocks with pearly white cum. That killed me.
Oh my god, the titles are so good.
That was my favorite though. That was the one where I was just like, pause again because I have to sit here and just let it go. And I saw Kodak film. I saw Kodak film in this movie, John Carlos.
Oh, like in the credits?
No, I mean like literally on sale, like in the
Oh, like
okay.
the gotcha.
That's something I have to say. While we're being old. Okay, I miss two things.
Okay.
I miss video stores. That's nothing new.
Yeah.
You know what I really miss? I miss being I saw Randall in the RST and I was just like, I remember that being in like a shoebox of a store.
Oh yeah,
because I
yeah.
worked at Suncoast in a mall, and I just remember, kind of hoping nobody stops in, but if they do, hi, and just try to do your own thing. But if they ask for something, offer them help. So you get to talk about movies, and they might be impressed with how much knowledge you have and everything like that. And it made me realize, yeah, I kind of miss it. I miss when working in a video store was a job option, because it just isn't anymore. And because it was a place where you could be of service. Because it's like, I already know this shit anyway, so I can put it into effect and make money off of it. And that's been taken away. It really kind of bummed me out. But luckily the movie kept going, so that helped. But I was just kind of like, wow, I think I would work in a video store if I could right now.
I mean, yeah, I mean the closest thing is like, music stores that have like Amoeba that has like a movie section.
Yeah.
And even then, there's not like, there's just people that you can ask about stuff, but like, yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah, and it's also a hustle and a bustle kind of thing. Like I miss a shoebox of a store. I miss, like a B Dalton sized thing. Vidiots, yeah.
Just reopened and they have a video store in it. That's like the big deal. Oh, and there's a great place in fucking Pasadena. It's like the last, and it's a video store like it's like they separate by foreign film, by directors, like it's like heaven. And it's like a cinephile video store versus just like the classic video store that you and I are talking about. So
right.
At least it exists.
Ooh, I'm gonna look for that. And Vidiots, where's Vidiots?
I don't know.
Okay, I can look it up. I follow them on Instagram, but I just haven't been. Because it's the digital fucking age. We don't go places, we follow them.
I never went to Vidiots before, and now that I know all the buzz like on Instagram about it reopening. I've had friends that have gone. I see posts about all these cool screenings. I don't know where it is. Okay. One day I'll go.
Yeah, me too.
But you were talking about the porno titles, and I just love like the punchline. It's girls who it was it girls who crave cock, girls who crave cunt. Like it's
everything
on its own.
Sun. Yeah, I love it.
Well, and I love they all feel like porno titles, and then like the last one's like all holes filled with hard cock. No poetry to it, just
I love knowing that Jeff Anderson didn't want the little girl to hear all that. That's cool.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Yeah, it makes the old man in me really. Actually, you know what? I would have liked that when I was a teenager too. I would have been like, yeah, I don't think I would have wanted to say that in front of a little kid. I'm not that corrupt,
The also just again, it's not really punchline rhythm, but like come clean, come go to the naked sluts, come buns 3, coming in socks, come on Eileen. Like,
yes,
come on Eileen doesn't. I mean, it's funny, but it's funnier when you've already said come a bunch of times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just like the idea. There's already Men Alone, and now Men Alone 2, the KY connection.
The KY connection.
It's a juicy title though. Speaking of title, what's one of the? I love that the lady's there to rent dental school.
Yes.
And in Clerks 3, Jay and Silent Bob return an old copy of Dental School. If there's ever, like Kevin Smith, like movies existed, and then we made movies for real with these pop-up events that you can do. Chronic Con existed in Reboot, and now they've just announced Chronic Con is going to be really happening. I mean, it's a Kevin Smith convention, but it's called Chronic Con. All these things that are fiction that they get to be turned into something kind of real.
Wow.
I need, if not Kevin Smith, then someone, but I need dental school for real. I want to see it. It's an 80s like Porky's, like very hetero, where like the boys are all silly and scheming and getting laid, and
Maybe you should make dental school.
oh, okay.
I mean, you're already on the map as far as like Kevin Smith and his periphery and everything, but this is a great way to just kind of, maybe get invited up to the house or something. You don't know.
That's the dream.
That's the dream.
That's because he I don't know if I mean, he goes through long stretches where he does it, and then these short periods where he's working and he doesn't, but he does these hikes up Runyon Canyon.
Right.
And he hikes to the top and then would take an Uber home. And I think like one day he either forgot his phone or something, but he couldn't Uber. And then these two people were driving by who recognized him.
Yeah.
They were in town. They were not even from the state that they were going to a Hollywood Babylon that night.
Oh my God.
And they're like, "Are you Kevin Smith?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Can you give me a ride home?" And like, I'm like, that's my dream. It's just to be driving. Kevin Smith's like, "Hey, can you give me a lift?" And I'm like, "Sure."
My God.
I mean, trusting of him, like if he didn't know that they were fans, probably wouldn't get in a stranger's car.
Sure, but
and then like he took them, he's like, "Hey, do you want to come in the house? Do you want to see some stuff?" And then once you're in the house, he's like, "I have this free, do you want some free shit?" I'm like, where I need, yeah. I'm not gonna say, "Oh, I'm gonna drive around Runyon Canyon looking for him," but I'm like, what if you just driving by Runyon and Kevin Smith invites you to his house and gives you free shit?
I just immediately want to be in the car
nuts.
too, and I want to be like the overexcitable guy who chloroforms him, and you're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Just drive."
Well, the thing that Ralph Garman was saying was like, you abducted them, basically. Like, like, well, hey, we dropped off. Do you want to come inside? Okay. Right. Hey, do you want a bunch of like? Can we go, please? Like,
right? No, it could be like an accidental misery scenario,
right? Yeah. Like reverse misery. Yeah. No, I have a few little things and then a couple things I'd end on.
Okay.
One thing I just respect about the structure of this movie is that there's like and there's cars in front of them, but there really are these like sort of mini vignettes, like this is the scene where like we talk about this, or when this customer comes. It always feels like a series of sequences, but it doesn't feel like a sketch movie. It still has a story and a through line, but it still also feels sequential. And I respect the shit out of it. That's not just sequential. It's more than that, but it still gives me the yucks of like this chunk and then this chunk and then that chunk. It's really
right.
Well, in fact, I guess that kind of leads me into one of my bigger thoughts. I'll just go into it now. Is it that the script, again, for someone in their early 20s, there's a lot of you can't just dismiss it because of like a lot of foul language and dick jokes, and we've talked a lot about how much meat there is as far as characters and intentions and where they're going, the bigger picture. But the thing that I responded to so directly when I was 16, actually no, 15 at the time, and I don't want to say it felt smart or profound, but it just hit me in a way that, like, especially as someone who's studying acting, who's going to school for theater, I'm like, this, like, I'd seen movies and I mean quotes like they have movie stars in them. This was like the beginning, like 94. I mean, 94 was like Pulp Fiction. This was the boom of the indie scene. Where I started watching things that weren't just movies anymore was this era. But prior to that, a lot of studio stuff. And when I was getting punchy dialogue, or when I was getting anything that felt more, it was in theater. And I'm at the age where I'm like discovering Mamet, and here comes this movie that, like, it felt profound at the time, that I'm like, he's comes from Jersey, it's his first feature, and it sounds like a play. And there have been many movies that came up before that, and many movies since, but I hadn't seen any of those yet. And at 15 years old, I'm like, and I bought the script when Chasing Amy came out. It was a double script for Clerks and Chasing Amy. I'm like, take this to class. Almost every scene, it isn't, because when you do scene studies, in school, a lot of movie scenes don't have as much meat on them, at least at the time. If you're doing like a scene from Breakfast Club, maybe, but like, this is a movie where pages go on for 5-6 pages at a time of two people, and sometimes where they're at the beginning of the scene, there's now a closure at the end of the scene. Randall's wanting to go to the video store, and then we end with like, I'm your hero, like it, and it pops. It's
Hmm.
not just cuss words, and it's not just Star Wars references.
No.
There's little, you're making a, it's just a broad generalization. You're making a generalization about broads, you know. He asks for the names, and he's like, no, who were they? No, who were the three guys? Like, anyway, all to say that it's a much, there's a reason why it's endured this long. There's a reason why it got like inducted into the Library of Congress.
Hmm.
Um, for someone so young, not to just structure it so well, but to have dialogue that like blew my little 15-year-old mind, where I'm like, this, anyone can take this script and make it work. Like, and it's these actors obviously are making it work on their own, and it's hard to imagine anyone else's voice saying them, but like it makes me want to find a scene partner and just do it. And it's so, the dialogue feels so theatrical, and I love that you can also feel the, like we talked about already, the proscenium of the image.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's an accident. I think, and I'm always fascinated by when I see certain movies that feel and sound like plays, and
Mhm.
this is definitely one of them.
I agree 100%. Like for the longest time, weren't they threatening to put it on stage? Like Kevin Smith himself even said, like, sometimes there were, motions to go forth to try and put it like on
I
Broadway
don't
or
know. I
something like
heard I
that in a
heard the
play
opposite.
version, but
I
really?
know I know someone did do a play of it, and then Miramax/Disney had to like go, you don't own that. I think
Oh.
I think it did like one or two performances, but Kevin Smith was like,
Okay.
hey, I don't own it, so, but he's like, cool, good job.
Right. Okay, cool.
Um,
But
yeah.
because it also, just in terms of its singularity, is attributed to everything that we've covered so far, and even just like the subject matter itself. I feel like Kevin Smith early on, I remember Janine Garofalo speaking to this, saying like he's making movies that nobody else is making right now. And I think she was also like, I mean, she liked Mallrats, but I know she was predominantly like talking about like Chasing Amy and Clerks. And addressing like a demographic that had never been addressed before, that never got addressed in the marketplace as it stood in the mid 1990s. But I can think, because I'm thinking about just like this kind of existential, like shiftless young people, like trying to kind of figure out like what path their life is, but not that hard. And the only other movie that I can think that was adapted from a play that even kind of like I think is on par, and even feels weird to say that, but it is on par, like I like it, that I can think of is Eric Bogosian's Suburbia.
Oof, yeah.
But what, like a different take.
Right.
Like
But
Suburbia is, I think they're both dark, but Suburbia seems to kind of like, spend a little bit more time wading through the morose and the regret, the angst of it and everything like that. I don't remember a lot of laughs in that movie, but maybe I'm just misremembering it. Maybe I just need
no,
to
no, there's
rewatch it.
not a lot of laughs
Okay.
in that play and that movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what's the expression? Something in my craw.
Hmm.
Something sticks in my craw. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an old timey thing that people say.
Yeah. It bugs
But
you. What?
well, it's a movie that physical media forgot. Like, I bought that movie on VHS in the 90s.
Same.
Never came out on DVD.
No.
Never came out on Blu-ray. Almost every Linklater movie is available, and then eventually Suburbia was put on some, like, I don't think it was Warner Brother Archive, but there was some sort of like made to order DVD pressing that it's like a terrible transfer. And I'm like,
Oh.
it's funny that Richard Linklater is so successful, and yet no one, and it's Warner Brothers, they don't want to do anything with that movie.
And that
And
cast
it's,
is
yeah, that
amazing.
cast is amazing. You got Giovanni Ribisi and Parker Posey and Steve Zahn,
God.
Steve fucking Zahn
Yeah.
with the
Oh
gnome.
my God.
Bring to you the keys to the city. Like,
Yeah.
it's,
Right. So
yeah.
crazy.
Nicky Cat,
Mm-hmm.
that monologue with Giovanni Ribisi. Anyway, but yeah, centers around a convenience store. 90s slackers,
Mm-hmm.
independent 90s director. These
Yeah.
are all coincidental things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like, the way Janine Garofalo, like, no one's making movies like him. Like, that's the thing at the time too, was And clearly these two guys were not the first ones to do it. But it's interesting that in 1994,
Hmm.
Pulp Fiction and Clerks both came out. I mean, Quentin
Hmm.
had already done like the Like a Virgin monologue in
Hmm.
Reservoir Dogs. But this idea that these two indie directors are exploding, where not the gimmick is, but they also happen to
Hmm.
reference and talk about pop culture in their movies. They're
Yeah.
vulgar. The characters acknowledge that Star Wars exists, or they acknowledge, all sorts of
Hmm.
shit. Um, and I don't know if people were aping him so much, but just that I mean, once you get past 94, indie cinema and wannabe kind of studio comedies are definitely there was a floodgate that was opened by Clerks that people started making more of. As far as Gen X slacker comedies go, and I fucking hate that term, but also
Hmm.
just the idea that you can reference pulp culture and that can be part of like the like a shorthand in your own movie.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't often think about this, but I have this little list in my head of what I call and it's not necessarily a good thing, but movies that capture the truth of being what I used to say being like a guy, and now I have to say like being like a cishet guy.
Hmm.
Because but like, and I'm fascinated by movies that can within 2 hours or 90 minutes cut to like usually an ugly side, but not always. Like I think
Hmm.
like Swingers is full of so many truths
Hmm. Yeah.
of being brokenhearted and making the wrong decisions, and also having these like aggressive friends that are all helping you out, but they're also pushing you when you're not ready, and also putting on Front Street what they want, and just there's quite, and I don't often put Clerks in there the way
Hmm.
I include like High Fidelity, um,
Sure.
About a Boy. Some of these
Hmm.
movies really show the selfish, ugly side of men. Clerks really does, though. I never really thought about that until this conversation.
Yeah.
Dante is a fool.
Yes, he is. I think honestly, I think it's I don't think it's hurt by the fact that it ends with him having, the sheet that he hung out that people have been referencing, the shoe polish on his hands, like the smell all day. He has it chucked at him, in a good natured way by his friend. It tells him you're closed, and the music's, and it's like a day, another day over and everything like that. He made it. He survived. Like there's something really uplifting about the
Yeah,
way we leave Dante. And even the fact that like he's making plans, but he's not worried about anything. He's just kind of like, well, okay, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna check in on Caitlin. I'm gonna go see Brian. I mean, I don't even like the choices he's making, but
hmm.
the fact that he's making a plan, that he's looking to the future and making even the most minute things, like he's looking at the people that he cares about in his life. So I guess there's something to be said for that. But I feel like it's all just on this subliminal level. Ultimately, I get kind of like a sense of like he might be okay. you know
Yeah,
if we never
I
got any
know.
sequels or
Yeah,
any more exposure to, and you just asked me like what do you think happens to that character, I'd be like, I think no matter what happens he's going to sustain and he's going to be okay.
yeah. It definitely leaves you feeling that way.
Yeah, so maybe that's why we don't, unless we're unpacking it in a conversation like this that lasts several hours,
Right.
we're usually probably going to like discuss like the more uplifting characteristics as opposed to like the things that I
Well,
think really got explored with some of Kevin Smith's later films about like what it is to be a guy,
and,
what not to do, the,
yeah,
the
totally.
checklist of what not to do for a cishet
Yeah,
guy.
there was definitely other lessons for me to learn
Yeah.
from other movies. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, the last thing I'll say, and I'm glad that we're talking about because it kind of in a weird way for me comes full circle, is that you're talking about how it ends on a hopeful note.
Hmm.
I do still find interesting that it is still like, a no good, terrible, very bad day.
Right.
You mentioned early on the quarter in the machine.
Yeah.
I have from a very early age, I've always carried this with me. Um, the title card for the old man who jerks off is
Yeah.
Harbinger. and as because that's the turning point where, and then Caitlin, but
Yeah.
for me, you could always, to me, put the harbinger when he gets the quarterback, because Dante, when he goes back, he's like, oh, I still have a quarter. He thinks, oh, it's a good thing. Like, I got these for free. Hey, got my
Oh my
quarterback.
God.
I always viewed that as ironic. Like, oh, you got the quarterback. You think your day's gonna be great. Your day's not gonna be great. All down, it's gonna be bad. That's a bad thing.
You think
Harbinger
you're
of
just
doom.
here for like 6 hours tops,
Right.
and
You
instead,
think till noon?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. You think you've coasting along with your girlfriend because it's comfortable, and you think you've got phone calls, and that they're nice at night. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everything is gonna go bad. And I think about that every time he goes back for the quarter. And then
Wow.
yippee, that like
Cavort. Okay, interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
that'll drop in next time too. I'll think my thing, but then I'll think like, oh, like you see, now I'm thinking Harbinger about that moment. I'm just kind of thinking like, you shouldn't have taken those papers.
I mean,
Karma.
I don't even, yeah, I don't, oh, because I never even thought about the karma aspect. I just
Right.
thought the irony of you getting your quarterback, like it's a nice, I'm like, no, it's going to be all bad.
Like a karmic pendulum swift, like because you took the quarter and the papers, life doesn't give with both hands. It's going to take something from you before the end of this day, and it will not
Right?
be, there will be no equity. Like it will not be an equitable divide. It will be whatever the universe decides. I shall smite thee with this today. And he got smited quite a lot.
Yeah. Part of me, speaking of like his smiting, I always like wonder, like, what if he didn't answer the phone?
Yeah.
What would that day have been?
He would
Or
have played
or
hockey.
or karmatically speaking,
Oh.
if you didn't steal the newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
would Caitlin have come today and ruined your life, or you ruined your own life, or
Right, right.
you know,
He
there,
wouldn't have known that she was getting married to through the newspaper for sure, because it's
right?
carrying the message in the newspaper.
Oh shit!
Fuck! There's so many layers. I am never gonna
Because
get stoned and watch this movie because it will
wow,
blow my fucking mind.
wow, wow, he's like carrying his own like fate, like
Yes, his own like invitation to like his no good, very bad day. What the
yeah.
fuck?
Because if because I just always can't help but wonder like the logistics of like, if he's not at the store,
Yeah,
then he doesn't hear the paper or the story in the paper, right? But
right,
then, but he's out playing hockey that day.
right.
Other people have read the paper. The guy in the store goes, "Oh, hey, did you hear?" That's the other thing. She comes on the train.
Yeah,
If she comes to the store, what? Because she knows he works there, but it's his day off. So if how much is it? Does she doesn't find him? She go to his house. Does basically? I always wonder: does Caitlin find Dante? Does his relationship with Veronica end? I feel like she would have inevitably found him because again, no cell phones. She has to look for him or call the house, and there's a lot of little what ifs, but it's not simply what if to me anymore. It's all about
right,
what if you had truly paid for the newspapers? Maybe
right.
your day would have gone a lot better.
There's only one person who can answer that question, and that's Alanis Morissette, because she's God.
Yeah, she can open up the Askewniverse book and
Yeah, there you go.
yeah.
And leap around and
Oh,
oh
that was
yes.
supposed to be my closing thought, but I do have this one random lingering question. I never for you. Because I never thought about this until one of the many viewings I showed people in high school, because it was all through high school.
Yes.
Everyone who could fucking tell about this movie. I never thought about this. For many, Dante has what I think is like Ovaltine or something. This little piggy container with like the lid that comes off, and he scoops it, but he scoops it into the lid, and then he
Yeah.
pours like the milk in, and then he drinks it out of the lid. And I'll never
Yeah.
forget, someone was like, "Ew," and I was like, Oh, I guess you're right. It is a container. And now
Yeah.
you've already like, so is there like drippy milk in it? Is it stirred? Like that? Yeah, you're right. If you're sharing this with other people's sanitary, but like, ever since then, I've always slightly judged Dante because I'm like, can't you just pour that into a bowl or cup? Why do you have to drink it out of the lid, the shared lid of its own container? You're a dirty guy.
Yeah, no, I think it's completely indicative as to like the headspace that he's in. That's what I thought. I don't necessarily think that he does this every morning, but he did just close, and it's about, when the attitude you take into your day with you, and you might slam a door you don't usually slam, or for me, it's clumsiness. I notice I start what do they call it when you shoulder past someone? Like I can't
Oh
remember.
yeah, like a
Yeah, but
shoulder check.
yeah, like I find myself shoulder checking archways in my house, that it's an archway, it's wide enough for me to go through, and I don't do this often. Why did I all of a sudden like boom, ow, like what the fuck? And it's because I'm not paying attention, I'm not fully awake, I'm probably moving a little faster or whatever, like you're doing things that you wouldn't. Hi, boo boo. You're
Kitty.
doing things. Show that butt. She's just, you're on the internet, Des. Yeah, you better run away. Thanks,
But
baby.
she's not the first one to show her asshole on the internet.
That's true. I should get her an OnlyFans. Oh God, that's disgusting. Okay, we've been talking too long. It's too
We
late. But
have been.
okay. But I never attributed it to him as like being a dirty guy. I always just kind of thought like it's that kind of morning. It's one of those where you're just like,
Oh,
I just don't give a. I drank out of this like all day yesterday, but it's what I have right now. What am I drinking? I don't know. Ugh. That kind of thing. Even though
interesting.
this is clean. This is clean.
I thought it was just like I'm thoughtless. I don't consider other people. I'm selfish. Like I don't consider Veronica's value. I only think about like what Caitlin means to me, and like I don't care about anyone
Oh,
else who has to eat out of this container. Like, you know. Or
that
he's
I
just a
mean
mess. He's got
that's
a pile of laundry. He's asleep in a closet. He falls in a pile of dirty clothes.
well, that's the thing.
He's a young boy. He's dirty. He's a mess.
Well, but I also think there's a day where those clothes are going to go into the laundry. There's a day where
Right. We're catching.
but I mean, he is sleeping on the floor, and I think he does do that, or not on the floor, but like, isn't he on a mattress on the floor, like,
No,
or
he's
something?
in a closet. You see,
Oh,
like
that's
the ed- and he
right.
falls out of it. They make that a running gag of every episode of Clerks. Like,
Right, right, right,
yeah.
right, right.
And
I
that's the other
forgot
thing is like
about that.
I like this idea when I was a kid. I always thought this idea like not like he's a party animal, but like what does he get up to the night before where like he wakes up in a closet and falls out of it? Like that
You
always
think he was
seemed
drink?
just.
Do you think it was drinking? Like after he closed? Do you think? What do you think he
Yeah,
was doing?
I think he got into some like no but we also know that Randall's like, hey, who was on the phone last night at like 2 a.m? Because I tried calling you and the line was busy because you were on
Because
the
he was
phone with
talking to
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Oh wait, so maybe he was in the closet to like muffle the sound.
So yeah,
Yeah. Fuck.
and then
See,
he ever I remember being so tired on the phone. Yeah, okay. You good night. No, you say good night. You
right.
say good night.
No, I actually,
Boom.
my bestie Bonnie. I've actually fell asleep like in a conversation with her when we were on landlines, and she was talking to me, and she was talking for a long time, and she was just kind of like, "Hello, okay, this isn't funny. Okay, ha 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 ha. Okay, well, if you don't," and it was a long straight, just, well, I'm gonna hang up. Okay, I hope you're asleep. I think. And I remember I woke up the next morning and the phone was off the hook right there by my face. And I was just
Wow.
like, and I was like, did I fall asleep? Yeah, did you fall asleep? I think I did. Sorry. Anyway,
That
but
that, that happened. Not yeah. My friend of mine. This isn't a judgment on me, but a friend of mine fell asleep while talking to me. Like he woke up at like 8 a.m. He's like, oh my god, my phone was off the hook. I'm like, yeah, I hung up on you. Like, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
no,
landlines.
I think we just cracked that though, because whether it's roommates or his parents or anyone in his family, it's like 2 or 4 in the morning,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's his
Oh
little private
God.
closet.
So that's why he's all like, he's got a Caitlyn hangover. But
Yeah,
I didn't notice the closet this particular iteration because I was too busy scribbling my immediate notes because number one, it was like, oh, Miramax logo. Don't see that the same way
Right.
anymore. But then I saw the View Askew production logo and I just thought, oh my God, vulgar.
Yeah, Vulgar the Clown. And
And I
the
was like,
implications of what's about to happen.
and I was just like, I am so glad I'm watching Clerks right now. Because saw vulgar once and that's all I need to that's
Oh,
it. That's
Vulgar the
it.
movie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's enough. I'll take the cartoon over the feature film any day. I mean, by the cartoon, I mean just that little logo of him just
Yeah, yeah.
wow, 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 wow. And is
And
this the only movie that they did that in front of?
yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I don't remember it in front of any other Kevin Smith movie or Askewniverse
Yeah, that was it.
picture. Wow. So I was scribbling that while he was hello, I was supposed to be here today, or whatever the fuck
Yeah,
he
they
said.
brought Vulgar back for Clerks. Was it reboot first or Clerks 3? I think it might have been Clerks 3, but it's like a CGI. I've had him on the show. Chogrin did the design, and I think it was like some sort of anniversary, but it wasn't the full blown.
No,
It's
no, no,
just
no, no.
it's just his head bursting through, but still, like that was the first time they used Vulgar in a very long time.
That's a sad movie.
It is.
Like that, I mean, that makes Suburbia look like a comedy. Well, maybe not a
I mean,
comedy. I'd
yeah,
I'd sooner watch Suburbia again, I think, than
yeah. No, if
Vulgar.
you were to describe the plot of that movie like, it's ghastly.
Yeah. People would be
Yeah,
like, why would you ever watch that? And I'd be like, because the cover looked cool.
I'm like, it's produced by Brian O'Halloran, and
Yeah, and it
and
gave he got like there was a good like
was
review
I don't want to.
for him.
I'm trying not to look it up, but right, it was the guy who it's Steve Dave. It's I have to look it up,
Okay.
but
Oh yeah. Right. Shit.
he ran the LA store, went
I
back when he was
was
an LA
just
store.
watching an interview with him too. Why? Oh, I'm ashamed of myself. But it's also late. We've been speaking for several hours.
Yeah, I'm just trying to yeah, Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, thank you for going down this over 3 hour conversation. So double
Yeah.
the length of this 92 or 94 minute movie. But
Yeah.
that was more fun than I was anticipating. So thank you very much.
Yay. I
Um,
was anticipating exactly this much fun.
nice.
Do with that what you will.
Um, you'll be back. I think the plan is for Chasing Amy.
Okay.
But for anyone out there, the plan for me this year is to do all the Kevin Smith movies throughout the year.
Yeah.
We might have some other guests for some other movies, and yeah. But until
Can't
next time,
wait.
sir,